All righty. I hope everyone has had a good morning. And if you don't happen to catch this live, I hope you have a good afternoon or good evening watching this because we are joined by, uh, well, actually a first for the podcast, if you will. We are going to be joined today by then Lieutenant John Bartlett. He was a CCN B Company hatchet force man. He was a squad leader, and he ended up retiring as a captain. But this will be, we've had two recon men, one previously this week. As a matter of fact, Wednesday night we had a recon man from 1971 on. But we are going to get a completely new look at CCN through the hatchet force side of things. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to our guest and let him give a little brief bio on himself and let y'all get to know him a bit. Mr. John, I hope you're doing good this morning.
I am, sir, and thanks for having me on. Slight editorial comment. Actually, a platoon leader. Squad leader was an NCO role, and just to get that right and make sure things go well. My name is John Bartlett. I live in Colorado. We have 10 acres in the Rocky Mountains, and we're very blessed. Gold medal trout fishing 5 miles away, and we have all the big game species to hunt too. So it was a great retirement place for us to be. My family came to America. They came to Plymouth in 1623. They missed the first Thanksgiving, but they came on the good ship Anne, and we've been in America ever since then. Later on years, the family migrated to Bethel, Maine, because the land grants and the colonial wars were the way they paid the soldiers in those days. And the family stayed in Maine for quite a number of years. 11 of them, as I understand, served in the American Revolution, and three generations there. And we've been active in the military and in America's wars down through the generations. I'm generation number 13, and I have children and grandchildren here. I grew up in Colorado Springs, Colorado. I was a fan of John Wayne and the cowboy shows and all that. And most of the men that I was associated with, uncles and dads, granddads and things, were all veterans. And I grew up thinking you just go and do the military and do your duty and then come home, find a good American gal, get married, get a good job, and go on living, raising a family. It was controversial times, as most everybody knows at that time, but my mind was made up. So I volunteered for the draft. In those days, there was a mandatory draft, 18 years of age over. Volunteering for the draft was a 2-year commitment, but they sweetened the pot a little bit if you volunteered for Vietnam, infantry in Vietnam. You could go to basic training, advanced infantry training known as Tigerland, 30-day leave over to Vietnam. If you survived that, you came home. You could leave the active duty military with all your VA benefits, and you'd have less than the 2-year obligation. So I decided to give it a try. I liked the military, to tell you the truth. You look at the bulletin board in the morning, know what to do, how to dress, where to go, and what was going to happen, and off we went. I went to Fort Bliss for infantry basic training. We used the M14. Then went to Tigerland in Fort McClellan, Alabama. It's not as well known as Fort Polk. It was infantry training in battalion strength to go to the fighting battalions in Vietnam. And we were introduced and used and trained in the M16. A lot of our commanders and our NCO cadre were all returning Vietnam veteran of that war. So our training was specific for that. during that time, we had the famous Shake and Bake NCO Academy going. It was called the Instant NCO Academy. They needed company grade NCOs because of the casualty rate in Vietnam in the infantry battalions, and I qualified for that on my SFAB score, and at that time had a baby coming and wanted to be home for that birthing event before I went over, and it extended my time by 12 weeks. So I went through that course. And just before graduation, they gave us the chance to go to infantry OCS at Fort Benning, Georgia. And that extended my stay in the United States another 22 weeks. And again, the officers and NCOs that trained us, most all of them were had already had Vietnam tours, so we got some good training. If you volunteered for Vietnam, you could, as a OCS candidate, you could go to the Special Forces Officers course. And the only thing I knew about Special Forces was a John Wayne movie, and a couple of the men in the company I was in were Special Forces NCOs going to OCS. And in fact, when we made out our dream sheet, the infantry unit I picked out was the 196 because I thought they had the prettiest patch. And one of the SF NCOs started laughing and said, give me that dream sheet, I'll fix it for you. Lucky for me, he did, and I went to jump school and then 12 weeks of officer training, 30 days off, and then Vietnam. When I, well, let me correct that. After Special Forces officer training, I was in the 7th Special Forces Group in B Company. And they started talking to me and telling me about, we didn't call it SOG then. You just didn't mention the word MACV or SOG together at all. It was top secret. They call it the projects in some cases. CNC was another acronym they used. And, the key that I wanted to be at in a good tactical unit, the reason was there were so many rumors about the Cali incident that they had in those days, and the draftee issue they had in those days. I wanted to be with a bunch of guys that wanted to be in the Army and wanted to be in Special Forces and wanted to be in Vietnam for patriotic reasons type of thing. My father was a World War II Navy cruiser sailor and destroyer sailor. His cruiser, the Astoria, went down in the Battle of Guadalcanal off Salvo Island, and they lost hundreds of sailors and Marines that time. I was a pretty smarty-alecky young teenager, and when he put me on the bus to go to the induction center, he looked at me and said in a very serious tone, "John, if you want to live through this war, you better find some good NCOs and good people and depend on them. They'll be your lifeline." I've never heard my dad use that tone of voice or talk that serious to me, but I knew it was real time and it was true. It certainly lived out that way. So after SFOC, we called it in those days, 30 days, graduated from there, waited for orders, got them for the 5th Special Forces Group, and showed up. The NCOs warned me that the induction center there, Tonsanute, they won't honor their orders. They're going to put you wherever they want you. And what you do is you go to this location, and there'll be a Jeep from the 5th Special Forces there. So a couple of us actually ran to the Jeep, jumped in the Jeep, and the sergeant took us to the training in the headquarters there so we could stay in Special Forces. And it's kind of funny now, but it was to us pretty serious then. We were there just a couple days, and the group adjutant was talking to all junior officers there. Said, "Where do you want to go, Bartlett?" I said, "Well, I'm from Colorado in the mountains." I want to go somewhere like that. Okay, fine. You're going to CCN. Well, I didn't know CCN from anything, but I was just happy to be going to the mountains rather than the rice fields of the southern part of Vietnam. I'll have to admit, a little culture shock when I first walked in. I was 19-year-old second lieutenant. And here was CCN, MACVSOG, and there they were. It was intimidating to say the least. I had no experience or credentials like most of the men there. It was made up of Recon teams they had snake names and state names. Don't remember actually all of them, but I think it's pretty well published. And then we had the hatchet force. We were supposed to call it the expeditionary force because that was a nicer term for the PR issues. I don't know that any of us ever did that. Those two companies, A and B, we were organized along Ranger lines. In fact, when I first got there, somebody handed me a Ranger handbook, and that was the best guidance. Super, super good guidance there for a young officer. What else can I say about it? The hatchet force was a company-size operation and was similar to the Mike force for the rest of special forces in company or battalion-size formations. Excuse me, need a drink of water. Our job was go in on infantry missions. It was kind of a recon thing in a way because we reported the things we seen and experienced, but nothing like recon. How do you hide 20 or 30 guys in the jungle when it takes that many helicopters to set them down? There's not that many LZs in the highlands there where we went. All of them had trail watchers on them or LZ watchers on them. Usually what we understood was 3 guys. They were dug in bunkers because our rotary wing and fixed wing is going to prep that LZ. When we left, a couple of them would follow us, and the other one went for the cavalry or their cavalry to come deal with us. In fact, we would sometimes even hear sequence of shots going down a valley, letting them know in a way that they could communicate without high tech because they didn't have it. What they could do to interfere with us. So we would have 2 trackers on us all the time. Hatchet force platoon is going to go in heavily loaded. We went mostly 20 to 25 because of the size of the insertion LZ and the lift capability of that altitude. We had CH-34, the old King Bee, and we had the UH-1D Hueys. We can only lift so many people and get them in, type of a thing. As we moved through the jungle, we left a big trail. I mean, there's yeah, there it is. That's a great aircraft. The reason was it could lift straight up in the small, tight LZs that are surrounded with triple canopy, double and triple canopy, where the Huey had to stand on its nose and taxi. And I'm not criticizing, I'm reporting to you about the differences in the aircraft. You had to exit on one side and entrance on one side. The Vietnamese pilots flew them with tremendous amount of courage. They had plenty of power to lift and to go. You could put 13 or 14 of us in one of those, just pack them in like sardines, and they could still lift off and go. 2 of the more famous pilots, Cowboy and Mustachio, legendary in the number of American teams and men that they saved. As we moved off the LZ, you could count on the 2 trackers. They're going to follow you to wherever your night RON is, rest overnight. We dig in every night, at least to your waist, if not up to your armpits. Never broke topsoil. Worms big around as 2 of your fingers and 2 feet long. In fact, one morning, the team sergeant, we called it team sergeant, but actually platoon sergeant, sitting on the sides of his foxhole with his feet hanging, down in the foxhole crying. And I thought, my God, what's going to happen to us if the senior sergeant's crying? It's got to be pretty bad. And he said, no, sir. He said, I grew up in, I believe he said Oklahoma. He said, we only had a few inches of topsoil to farm. And if these dang people would quit fighting long enough, they could feed the whole world, because we never broke topsoil anytime we dug in ever. It was plenty of rich land there to grow all kinds of things. It's in the tropics. Okay, when you sit down, one of them kept eyes on you. The other one went to bring the cavalry up to deal with you. That was going to happen each time. Sometimes I understand they were Laotians as compared to NVA. And we had a couple attempts to get a POW on that tracker, and it just didn't work for us. Those guys were really, really good at their work. We also at times had flankers on each side of us, and we knew they were there, but we of course couldn't see them in the jungle. Their idea was to push us to where they wanted us to be for the encounter that we were going to have with them. In the hatchet force, we were looking for a fight in some cases. From the point of view, we were ready to fight. We weren't there to sneak and peek. And again, that's not a criticism of our recon brothers. It's straight up. We were a highly, prepared to be there and to get in a fight. Or if we were going to try to help a recon team, or we were going to strike a target, we were there with a completely different mission. There was no sneaking and peeking. Sometimes I wish there was, that we had stealth to use, but it just wasn't going to happen. In my case, at my age, 19 and 20, and this was my first and only tour, 1969 and 70. I kept everybody in file formation except one time, and I split the platoon, and nothing really bad happened. We lost nobody, but it just didn't work for me. I was a nervous wreck. I needed everybody close to us, because that's how we trained. Because of the jungle too, and I have to admire the enemy, because they could do it, but I just wasn't comfortable with it. For us, we had three. After a while, I was managed to get. We had three M60 machine guns. Everybody carried a couple 100-round belts. We had M72 Law in case there was a bunker. A lot of claymores. The minimum number of magazines Brew Mountain Yard was carrying in us was 14 or 15 magazines. There were times when I carried as many as 30 magazines. These were 20-round magazines loaded 18 rounds because the weapon functioned better. I know some people scoff at that and don't believe it, but what the listeners to understand is we had no mortar fans to protect or help us. We had no artillery fans. Air power was 20 to 30 minutes away if it got there. They had to come through leave one weather zone, fly through a second weather zone, and then enter our weather zone to help us, and then deal with triple canopy. So if you didn't have it on your back or in your hands, you didn't have it. 20 minutes is a long time in a firefight. At least it was for us. I wanted the reason I carried that many magazines, mostly 25 to 30, was I gave them away to the mountain yards so that the fighting soldiers in front of me had plenty of ammo. Also, in my mind, it was an attempt at an act of kindness when I went around and checked the perimeter or checked the patrol to make sure, do you have enough magazine? No, Darby, and I'd give them a magazine or two. I actually gave away more magazines than I fired. Not ashamed of that. They were the ones up front doing the fighting, especially covering the machine gun. We used a triangular formation when we sit down with a machine gun on each of the points of the 3 points of the triangle, because it gave us better coverage in final protective fires if we had to swing them all to the right or the left and go on final protective fires rather than the circle where you don't have the distance of the fan there to put out enough ammo. I never fired a shot in South Vietnam. The shots I fired were in Laos, mostly around the Laotian salient. You can see it on the map. It's a giant peninsula of land there, and they have the river there has a place called the Anvil that's pretty legendary for some of the SOG teams. Also, it was well-known SOP, standard operating procedures. If you get in trouble and need help, and a recon team gets in trouble and needs help, we're going to help the recon team first, simply because they have less people and they need the help more, and that was understood and not regretted. We also carried frags. I've carried as many as 13, type of a deal. The frags can be used if you're very careful in the jungle, but you got to understand the foliage in the jungle. How far can you throw one? At night, you don't hardly dare throw one where we were at anyway, because you could get knocked down by the foliage and then you eat your own shrapnel. Claymores went out every night, and they stayed out. Nobody left the perimeter. Personal needs were taken care of in the foxhole or in the perimeter. You stayed elbow to elbow in the foxhole, and the foxholes interlinked. Officers like myself, the way I worked it, officers are on one of the legs of the triangle, and so is the team medic, and the RTO is by me. Brew Taylor, what a guy. He did a great job. He was always there when we needed him. He kept that radio going. That was our lifeline to air support. And without that, I wouldn't be here, neither would any of them. Yeah, what a guy. We always had a fear of, you don't leave the perimeter at night for personal needs or any other need. What happens if the RTO leaves the perimeter and doesn't come back? That gives me goosebumps to this day, and I'm 74 years old. I got the idea of the extra machine guns from listening to war stories about very fine soldier Dick Meadows. He was known for his excellence, his personal courage, and his integrity. Never met the man, but everybody respected him and his accomplishments. He was a sincere person and a good soldier. When I read some of his after action reports, I tried to duplicate the things that he did. I spoke earlier of training. Yeah, we had good training. But you know what? The NVA taught me how to change magazines rapidly. Never had that training as I went through. We needed to learn how to change magazines laying on your gut or running or walking or whatever it was. You needed to rapidly change magazines, type of deal. And we didn't like to leave them, although we did at times. Usually they went down your shirt, and you hoped they were there when things calmed down. Thank you to the logistics people, the S4 people. They started sending us loaded magazines, and boy, does that help. It's pretty tough to get a wooden crate of ammo. Now what do? We didn't even have a hammer to get the darn thing open, but we finally did. And, you know, I probably wasn't the most kind and gracious use of language when I complained about that. But it wasn't intentional. We were learning. That part really, really helped. I've been asked about the Agent Orange thing. Did you drink the water? Yeah, that's all we had. Were you in the area where Agent Orange was? Yeah, because they dumped it on where the NVA was at and where the Viet Cong was at, and that's where we were at. We were looking for them, type of a deal. Did it adversely affect us years later? Yes, it did. And we need to do what we can to help the veterans. I deal with it myself, not asking for pity or allocates. It's just a fact that we do need the help. Please have your family members go through the VA and get it fixed. The time I got to CCN in Da Nang is a well-oiled machine for the most part. We had a lot of experience there. I had a little bit of a grudge there because as an officer, I didn't frequent the club. And the legendary club is always mentioned in the books and things. This is where we learn stuff of what works and what doesn't work. And the old soldiers and experienced soldiers talking to the new guys, and you better be listening. It was a regret that I had, but it healed itself, and I want to tell you why and pass along the allocates. Lynn Black, Pat Eddington, Jan Waringa had teams, and they were very busy with what they were doing, and they had very good teams, and they're very respected 1-0s. No doubt about it. Anybody will tell you that to this day. But they had time to come by once in a while and say, "How you doing, Lieutenant? And how about do you ever think of doing this, that, or the next thing?" And yeah, there they are. you bet. Some of the RT Cobra. Yeah, wow, I'd forgotten the name. Thank you. There he is. Pat's up in the upper right hand corner there. Fine man and fine soldier. I wanted him to hear that, and I want his family to know that. It helped because I didn't have at that time a senior NCO to help us train. When we got one, finally, Sergeant First Class Paul Machad, at that time he had 3 Purple Hearts and 1 Silver Star and a Bronze Star for V for his work in the 4 Corps Mike Force, in the Phoenix program, the Omega program, and in the Delta programs. He came to us partial amputee, stepping on an M14 mine, and he was part of the security NCOs. And he told the colonel he didn't want to do that. And I was whining as loudly and often as I could, "I need a senior NCO." So they assigned Paul to me and said, "Here he is, John. He hates officers." I said, "Well, can he read a map and will he shoot?" "Yeah, he'll do that." "Okay, Sergeant Major, thank you." And I walking down to the company area, I'm mad and I'm Dutch and English by national origin. French. And anyway, I'm an American mutt. So I got a red face and I'm kicking dirt and sand at CCN and I'm mad. There we are. Yes, indeed. Wow. What a guy. Dutch Ring. I misspelled his name. I apologize. Gosh, I had enough issues. At that time, I had just a few two enlisted men with me, and we needed seniority and we needed the experience to help us on the NCO level. I walk in the platoon area, and they're loading magazines and loading rucksacks because we're going to go on a mission. So I say to one of the men, "Where's the new guy?" And he's pointed to a little circle, and I walk over and look at him, and he's the same size as the mountain yard, so that's why I couldn't see him. And I said, "What's he doing?" He was carving on a piece of foam. And the reply was, "He's making himself a half a foot because he only has a half a foot on one side. Stepped on a mine a tour ago." So I look at him, and in my arrogance and anger, I say to him, "If you slow us down, I'll leave you." What a jerk. I was a jerk then, and I'm a jerk now because of that. And he gave me a look, and I was really hoping that I'd get out of the room alive, to tell you the truth. He stood up and he said, "You'll never have to worry about that, Lieutenant." He wouldn't call officers sir. He called us by our rank type thing. And that was a major blessing to get that soldier. He whipped us into a Class A #1 fighting force. because he had the experience of the Mike Force and the other programs. He was no greenhorn. He was a move, shoot, and communicate, spirit of the bayonet type of guy, and he led by positive example. He could read, write, and speak, I think, 8 languages. He'd walk the company front. We had 3 platoons, a Brew Mountain Yard platoon, Vietnamese Chinese platoon, a Cambodian platoon. He could walk the length of the company in between American curse words and change languages every time his foot hit the ground in front of a different platoon. One of his more famous stories to tell about me was he asked me one day, "You want to help train the soldiers or not?" Well, of course, I want to help train the soldiers. Okay, you're going to do knot tying classes. So he had the company in a horseshoe type formation by their ethnic background. So there was 3 languages there. My language is 4th. And all the NCOs are lined up shoulder to shoulder with this grin on their face. So I knew that something was up, because a second lieutenant, well, this will explain it. When I first met him, he said, Buster Brown with a green beret on, because I had such a baby face and had my green beret on and stuff. So there I was, standing in front of 3 different language groups trying to explain how to tie a knot. And even we called them the little people, because everybody was taller than them. You could see the smirks on their faces. They knew what was going on, and I was still trying to figure it out. The redder I got, more confused I got. I couldn't explain knots. And pretty soon he walks over, says, "Let me help you, Lieutenant." And he took the Swiss seat from me, which is a 3/4-inch nylon rope. I can't remember how long they were, to make a Swiss seat out of, to be extracted on a 120-foot nylon line. Held it up without a word. He started going through the knots. All the soldiers stood up, watched him. He was tying those knots in reverse order because he was facing them. And that's quite an accomplishment. Never said a word. And then we had a beer and laughed about it. So I learned my lesson there, and that was kind of my initiation. He taught us how to fight in the jungle, and I mean fight type of thing. He taught us how to come forward and pick up a wounded man and bring him back and put down cover. He taught us how to exchange magazines. He taught us how to keep the machine gun going. There was nothing he couldn't teach us. He had an open disdain for other E7 NCOs that weren't going to the field, but he went. We also had Tony Coelho go to the field. He got a Distinguished Service Cross. He taught us how to break out at night by throwing grenades and proceeding out that way. Fine soldiers. We were blessed in those days of the degree of commitment our commanders had and we had. Maybe some of you know about the call sign Prairie Fire. That means we're in really, really big trouble and we need some help. They would divert aircraft for us. And our commanders, the Chief SOG, Colonel Pinkerton, Colonel Shungle, forgive me as I don't remember some of the names, they had the power, influence, and personality to get us some help. And they did get it. We didn't have high tech, by the way. We thought jungle boots and a Car 15 was high tech because it was better than an M14 and leather boots. Well, I guess we had the URT-10 radio. We finally got one of those. They were originally for downed pilots so they could be found, and that helped us. I carried one for our platoon. That's an issue at several hundred miles an hour, trying to see a panel or a flashing mirror in the jungle to know where you're at. We did not travel at night. I couldn't bring myself to it. That's an apology. I know the enemy traveled at night, but we didn't. Just was better off because of the trackers and things. We go into the defensive position. A lot of times, we some guys like to stack their magazines on the edge of the foxhole, and that was kind of a wishy-washy thing because of the mud and stuff like that. But even straighten the pins on the grenades, got the clackers ready for the Claymores is what, what I'm trying to say. I'm sorry. Night vision was available, but it was too big, too heavy, and was a big green spot, and right behind the green spot's your head. So I made a decision there. No, thank you. I'd rather have more magazines and more claymores and more machine gun ammo, belted ammo. We did carry some of them out of their little pouch that they came in because it was we needed them faster than that type of thing. We did carry extra barrels for the M60. M16s and M60s were an upgrade. The original Hatchet Force had World War II weapons like the Mike Force type of deal. We had available were Swedish Ks, British Sten guns, Jewish Uzis. I think there was a Czechoslovakian type light machine gun.
30 cal still in the mix.
Pardon me?
30 cal still in the mix. The old
carbine. Yeah, you need something to plow through the jungle. We had more ammo for them, more maintenance for them. And I just had more trust in American weapons. I didn't have the training in the foreign weapons. Also, Brew Mountain Yard, I'm 5'6", and I was taller than most of them. Them carrying an M1 or something like that from World War II, fine weapon, wrong geographical position. They were more than glad to get the M16. By the time I got there, a lot of the problems with ammo and springs in the magazine and gas ports and all that had been worked out, type of a deal. I had an M16 most of the time. Car 15s went to Recon teams. Finally did get two. I carried one, and so did whoever was on point to help out. Did have the experience where we had two 30-round magazines. Just weren't available, I guess. I didn't get to see all of it because I was hiding, but the point man bumped into somebody else out there, and he had an AK with a 30-round magazine. They both emptied their magazines and hit nobody because they both had their heads turned, is what I was told. Must be they both survived it. That kind of a deal. When we went to in on an LZ, it was going to be what we called hot. And when we left, it was going to be hot for sure. Getting in was easier because they wanted you to get in type deal. So they could deal with you. Also, they wanted the birds to be there and hover for a while so they could shoot at them. They were after the birds. I'd like to extend another thank you to American courage and skill of American rotary wing and fixed wing pilots. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them. And most of the guys at SOG, I'm sure, would tell you that. I have gotten to see my children, sons and a daughter, grow to the men and women I wanted them to be, the wife and I. Now I'm seeing grandchildren in college growing into be fine citizens and good people. And thank you. Chokes me up today. To give you an idea, that they weren't shooting at us trying to get on the aircraft. They were shooting at the aircraft. And one of the reasons to say thank you is they either the aircraft is shot to doll rags. I've heard of numbers. I never counted the holes, but a lot of the glass is gone and the holes in the aircraft, and they park that one. And I have seen them walk over to another aircraft, rotary wing, get in it, and go back for another load. That takes guts, bottom line. And thank you, even though I don't get to see you today, but the chance for me to say thank you, because we're off taking care of wounded and getting out of the way of the aircraft off the tarmac and stuff. Same with the fast movers from the Air Force or from the Navy, Marines. They put it down where it really counted. We even had, I think it was called an A1E Sky Raider. It was a World War II fighter plane that put down close air support. And man, could they put it down. And maybe somebody out there can help me. We were under a hot extraction, and they were putting it down for us. And when they came down usually in twos, the front plane, and I think they called it wingman. When the wingman went over us, I mean, they were chopping the top of the canopy off with their props. That's how low. And the wings were lit up tip to tip. I mean, they were pouring it to them. And the reason is the NVA is going to try and get inside that fire up to us. So they were bringing it in close, type of a deal. That's the only option the enemy had. He tilted and waggled the wings at me, if I can explain this. To this day, I swear that pilot had gray hair. And I don't know whether I was hallucinating or what, but I kind of asked around, and as I understood it, they brought in some Korean Arab pilots and World War II pilots were in the inactive reserve to fly them, and they flew them. I'll tell you what, and they could stay on station longer and bring more ordnance a lot of times than the early Hueys. Couldn't extract you, of course, but they could helped us out. Thank you to them too.
Do you guys have experience with Spooky as well with the Hatchet Forces or the Spectre, the gunship up there, the AC-130s?
Several of the teams did. My only experience was the first night I was in Vietnam. We hadn't even drawn weapons, and they hit in the Trang, and Spooky came, and we were supposed to, all the newbie guys like us, they called us new blood, we're supposed to go to this one bunker. And so I leaped out of my bed, put my boots on the wrong feet, my helmet on backwards, and in my underwear ran to the bunker, nearly knocked myself out. Thank God I had a helmet on. But I wasn't the only one like that. And my big excuse was, well, I didn't have a weapon or anything. So, there's my story. To the great delight of several of the NCOs, when you're a lieutenant, you're a target of opportunity for amusement. And what I found out too now, 40, 50 years later, I see them at a convention or a meeting of retired guys, and they always remember your dumbest thing you did.
Always.
Yeah, always. I get Christmas cards. They'll ask me, "How's your Purple Heart, John?" Well, sir. They mostly sir is my first name, not my rank. Okay. The reason for the great amusement is me and Forrest Gump got similar situation.
$1 million wound.
Yeah, I lost more blood learning to shave, really. I did, and it was a great source of amusement for them. If one of them forgets to mention it, the other one, of course, reminds everyone, type thing. And it's in good fun. I don't take offense at all. If I could think of something dumb they did, I'd tell it on them. Type of thing. What else can I tell you? The reason we had different ethnic groups is that's where we could recruit, was part of it. The other is, depending on where we were going to strike a target, we didn't feel comfortable taking mountain yards to strike a mountain yard target. As cruel or maybe as odd as it sounds, we used the ethnic hate between the races and the ethnicities because we knew they would fight. That's important when you're only with one or two Americans and everybody else is an indigenous soldier. And were we infiltrated? I'd have to guess yes. There were not us, but there were times when our recon teams met with resistance that had the old-fashioned bullhorn and would call out their name. Well, how'd they get that name out of that top secret deal? We later found out there was a ranking Vietnamese general that was a traitor. And there was someone in the American intelligence level somewhere or something. I don't know all the details, but I have lived and spoke with men who've had that experience, and it's a life-altering event.
They had several. There was one in Saigon, and then they also, as we've learned from one of our recent force recon who went to work at with the PRU organization, that uh, the in I forgot where, at the Continental Hotel. He used to run around with the Time magazine reporters and was a actual spy that worked for Time
Yeah.
magazine and
Yeah.
unknowingly was getting information all along.
Now that you mention that, I remember it, and I would, if there are active duty folks, young people who are watch these things,
Hmm.
these podcasts, be advised.
Mm.
Be advised. Uh, it's you have to be, and you have to study unconventional warfare and guerrilla warfare of the past and learn from their mistakes. A good example was in our effort to help and be kind, because we had what we called civic action projects to help the people we were fighting with. Little things like their pigs had in mountain yard villages were sway back due to some kind of a parasite because they ate the human feces that was underneath the hooches. And I don't know all the biological issues there. It had something to do with liver flukes. And recently, we just received correspondence from the VA to be tested for liver cancer from liver flukes for veterans over 70. Um, got lucky and came clean on that. But anyway, also the chickens are scrawny little chickens. So ended up some pigs from America came over and some chickens, and then from America. And as soon as the VC saw that, they were pretty rough on the villagers. Same mistake in Persian Gulf when Special Forces folks packed Stinger missiles over the Pamir Mountains and left the horses and mules. I guess it was Al Qaeda in those days or whoever it was. Same thing. How come we don't learn from our mistakes and innocent people get killed by us trying to help them? It's something I know it happens. There's no innocence in an unconventional war, but we still need to do what we can do, and I would hope it's being done. I'm not well versed on what is being done nowadays. One more, and then take questions. Maybe is that okay?
Yeah, yeah, that's fine. Absolutely, sir.
Um, Last fall, I got to go on an all expenses paid goose hunt with 8 members of the 10th Special Forces. They're
Oh,
Fort Carson, Colorado, Colorado Springs, Colorado. The reason was I am a Vietnam veteran, and I experienced the fall of Saigon, vicariously. I was not there, and the way we exited that country, and then it happened again in Afghanistan, just like the pigs and the chicken thing. And it hurts. And so our effort was to help the young men, Special Forces soldiers in the 10th group coming out of Afghanistan. As I understand it, the Special Forces widow financed the hunt for 9 of us. And thank you, ma'am. The idea was to talk about the similarities, because I know when I saw the news reels or videos of half screen Saigon and a half screen community in Afghanistan, then the hurt came back. And not, I gave up the advice I got as a lieutenant not to be political. Well, heck with that. We got to be political, and we got to speak out. We got to stand up, and we got to make it known that we're either going to fight to win and help, or we're not going. And yeah, we are going to speak up when things are wrong, type of deal. But I don't want to get anybody in trouble. It's on active duty, but it's a little different game. But moving along, um, the goose hunt. What I found out, we did get to talk. The young men were more interested in my past than theirs. Uh, I don't drink anymore, but they do a couple beers, and they told me a few things. Thank you. Uh, they are well trained. They are intelligent. They are committed patriots. 3 of those guys was on their way to Ukraine, and they were the 8 young men that were there were some of the very last people to step on an airplane and leave Afghanistan, type of deal. At first, I thought that's a little tough to send them to Ukraine. And the more I thought about it, you know what? I extended for Vietnam. It wasn't approved, but I extended. They're trained, they're ready, they're of the age group, they're fit, they're techno savvy, and they want to do what they volunteered to do. So, I'm certainly not a field grade or general grade officer to make those decisions, but I think they were doing okay. I never heard a word of complaint about what was going on there, and they were cautious in their words about our government. So that's a good sign, in my mind, for them. I did find out when you're 73 years old and you go goose hunting with 8 young Special Forces soldiers. They use the word Green Beret nowadays. We kind of thought that was our hat, and we, the men, were Special Forces soldiers. So I use that word. Old cowboy saying, and even an old Special Forces saying, is hat don't make the man, man makes the hat. I still believe that. Anyway, when you're 70 some, going goose hunting, time I got stood up in the blind and my shotgun from to the shoulder, they'd already emptied their shotguns. And at first it kind of tickled me. Then I got to thinking, young fighting men should be able to stand up and shoot hard and fast and accurately. That's a good thing,
Absolutely.
It really is. Well, I think I'm talked out.
That's fine.
We've go along.
We've got a good build of questions so far. I was curious a little bit at the beginning. When you were still an NCO before OCS, I believe you mentioned the NCO school.
Yeah, sure.
Where was the NCO school during the Vietnam era? Where was
it was
that?
Also at Fort Benning, as was jump school and OCS. We were in World War II barracks type of deal. Our cadre NCOs and our instructors, almost to the man, were in between. We called them tours in those days instead of deployments. Waiting, convalescing. They could even be on light duty wounded, and they were showing us what to do and how to do it. I don't remember the exact numbers. I think honor graduate even got E6, and a certain percent got E5, and that's why they called it Instant NCO Academy. The troops words that I heard were shake and bake, because there was a popular commercial on TV in those days about some ingredients you could shake chicken in and fry it, type of thing, called shake and bake. And so we were known as shake and bake. What I noticed was a lot of the men, or somebody that was going to get promoted anyway. Promotions were rapid in the infantry then. Maybe they were Army-wide, and I don't really recollect. For instance, as an officer, it was 1 year as a second lieutenant, 1 year as a first lieutenant, then you were a captain in infantry, and probably the other combat arms. Way, in my mind, way too much responsibility and not enough hands-on experience. And again, my best comment is I learned to rapid exchange of magazines from the NVA. They can't teach you everything getting ready, but they sure gave it a hard, sincere try. I don't know if there's a better answer. All of us have to go out to our first game, your first time at bat, so to speak. You don't know what it's like. I imagine it's like standing on the high board and you don't know what it's like till you hit the water. Or jump school, you don't know what parachute's like till you're standing in the door. I gotta tell you. I guess I could share a little story there. When I went through jump school, the cadre first sergeant took a special liking to me. They had a rule that officers could only be dropped for push-ups every 10 feet or something. So he'd line up his sergeants every 10 feet before morning formation. So time I got to formation, I'd done 100 push-ups or more. And then he would say to the soldiers, the future paratroopers, would the men like to see the quality of leadership in the American Army today? Oh, yeah. Lieutenant Bartlett post, do 10 push-ups. Well, I'd get 7 or something. And the troops knew what was going on because I was behind the formation doing push-ups. And when the 250-foot tower came, who wants to go first? Would the soldiers like Lieutenant Bartlett to go first? Yeah, sure. They didn't want to go first. Got through that, and then first day of our first jump. Okay, the soldiers like to see the quality of American leadership. Would they like Lieutenant Bartlett to go? Well, anybody but them. So there I am standing in the door at Fort Benning, Georgia, coming up on the drop zone, and I am determined to jump. I want to be a good soldier, and I want to be a good leader. And I don't want the other guys to think I'm a chicken and everything that goes to your mind. I looked to my left, and the drop zone's coming up, and I couldn't look anymore. So training is watch the horizon. Boy, that's good advice. So I did that. So when you jump out of the aircraft, your parachute is attached to the airplane with your static line. And as it leaves you behind, that automatically deploys your parachute. And our training was you count 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004. You rock back and check your canopy. Make sure it's open. If there's something to fix, you've been trained how to fix it. Well, shucks. When I leaped out, I was screaming at the top of my lungs, open, 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 much to the delight of the NCO cadre on the ground because they can hear every word you say. Had big Jeeps with a giant microphone speaker thing as big as the front of the Jeep. They talk to parachutists that are in trouble. As soon as I hit the ground, I mean, it couldn't have gone any better for their amusement program than me saying that at the top of my lungs, So, of course, there was some teasing, hazing type things. I had to practice counting to 4 quite a number of times so that I could better remember it. So, funny now, a little different then type thing. I've been trying to shut up for 3-4 minutes, so I guess.
Were the cadre were they all regular Army, or had you come across any special forces men at that time yet, or was it all 101st, 82nd, 173rd, 9th Infantry, stuff like that?
The vast majority was. Certainly the mass majority was. I didn't really get to know the cadre NCOs at all. They keep professional distancing there. In our ranks, everybody was not qualified, so there were no SF guys there. We did have an SF recruiter come speak to us, and years later, I figured out it was Paul Mashad type of a deal, and they give the Macho program and Yay team and all that, looking for volunteers for special forces training because they had a high casualty rate. Of course, and I'm believing it's well known through some of the books, and I'll think of the name here just in a minute. He's a national speaker on it. In fact, he lives only a few miles away. I'm embarrassed here. Keith McKim. He did quite a bit of research, and our casualty rate at SOG was 80%, which was highest in the history of the American Army. To qualify that includes any and all wounds. My wound, I lost more blood learning to shave, I think I've mentioned, is counted in that. And you just went back to work. I got decorated basically because I was an officer and they put the paperwork through, and then here it was getting it pinned on. A lot of the soldiers, NCOs and soldiers, they're soldiers too. They just pinch out a little piece of shrapnel or scrap and be glad they're not hurt any worse than they are, and tape it up and forget it, continue to march. We even had, that's me there. The second soldier there, he's on some different podcasts. I wish I could remember his name. He was already did some type of deal. The soldier on the far left over there is a we call Lodgebill soldier. He cut his teeth in Czechoslovakia at that time, and I am embarrassed. I don't remember their names, type of thing. I didn't wear my Purple Heart or let anybody know about it till 20 some years later, because I was a little bit ashamed and discouraged when you think of the wounds most of the other veterans had. A little trip through the VA hospitals tell you that. If you want to change your attitude on life, go through there and see what they're suffering. But same team sergeant. We were having our own gathering Memorial Day and New Year's Eve. And it was for MACVSOG and Mike Force only, or you had to be vested by somebody who actually served with you in battle, in combat. That was because of the posers that are out there. There's 20 plus guys there, and he pulls me aside and he said, "Where's the Purple Heart on your plate on your truck?" So didn't get hit that bad. Don't want to talk about it. He said, "We're going to talk about it." His famous saying was, "This isn't a conversation. I'm going to do the talking and you're going to do the listening." He says, "Everybody here has Purple Hearts. There's several that have multiple. Paul had 4 Purple Hearts and a Silver Star with an Oakley cluster. At that time, he was the highest decorated veteran in New Mexico for Valor Awards." He said, "You're the only one young enough and you're talkative enough to speak up for us. So what are you doing to help?" Well, I was doing nothing and tightened my cinch. So he and my wife, she took care of getting the Purple Heart plate. And that's when I started wearing the bolo tie. The reason I like to wear them is people approach me and say, "What is that?" Or my dad, uncle, mom, somebody in the family has one of those too. Gives me a chance to talk to them about it, refer them to services. Talked to one elderly lady, and they had 2 Purple Hearts in their family, 2 different generations. Attended a funeral for Special Forces NCO in the brand new VA cemetery in Colorado Springs area south of there, out in the prairie. They're just getting it started. We showed up late, our little group, to honor that soldier because there was a mix-up in the times and we had the wrong times. And that's very embarrassing. How it turned out, it wasn't for one Special Forces soldier. It was for 6 veterans. Because of COVID, they held up the funeral process and waiting for the cemetery to open. I don't know how many of you like to listen to taps, but most of us prefer not. Taps 6 times in a row was an opening experience for us. All of that family were the last, say, 3 generations of immigrants from foreign countries. All of them served in the military, and all of them served with distinction and valor. A couple of them had Purple Hearts. That's the kind of refugees we need in America, in my mind, type thing. Yep, there's our Purple Heart sign. Thank you. What that is about the Purple Heart Trail. It's an imaginary trail sponsored by the Military Order of the Purple Heart. The purple mountain you see behind you is Pikes Peak, and that's on a song, America the Beautiful, Purple Mountain's Majesty. The song was written there, I believe, by Catherine Lee Bates. Later put to music. These signs are put in places of distinction like city limits, county limits, special park situations type of deal. The idea is to put out something positive about our veterans, about the Purple Heart, so that they know what the decoration is. The Purple Heart is not earned, so to speak. It is received. We would rather be called recipients as compared to like a meritorious service or valor award. One of the reasons was I was having coffee in our little community of Woodland Park, Colorado. The young lady at the coffee shop asked me about my bolo tie. and it's not the medal, it's the coin. And I explained it to her, and she said, there's a family member, I don't know whether it was dad or granddad or hubby or what, and when she just didn't know about it. And she questioned me while the other people stood in line. She wanted to know. And I said, John, it's time to get the word out. Part of it's male pride, machismo, or however you say it. We don't like to talk about it, but maybe we should. I haven't talked to my own sons about it. Sit up all night talking to a veteran or sit up all night talking to active duty. The gentleman you saw holding that sign is one of our council members there, city council. And I got to tell you, I'm not the biggest fan of government, but because of certain things going on. But he's a veteran, and our city council stood up to support that. And we're going to be putting 6 signs around our community. And we've already had our first meeting with our county commissioners, Teller County, and we're going to put them around the county. And then part of my job is to go around and talk to them about what that medal is. It's the most revered medal, started by George Washington. It was a Valor Award, a patch sewn on a sleeve. They actually have some of the original patches at the Smithsonian. It's time for us to share. We don't need to share the blood and the gore, the horror, the whole dang thing. We can leave that alone. But we need our children and grandchildren to know, because we need to train patriots to keep our country where it is or do better. Strictly a personal opinion, but and I mean that. One question people give me, would you do it all again, John? Well, maybe. Couple thoughts. One is, at 74 years old with a heart condition and Agent Orange problems and being fat and overweight and out of shape, no. There got to be another way an old man can help. If I had to do it all over again, knowing what I knew then, yes, I'd do it all over again. Did you kill people? Yes. Do it again. They were communists, and we had the belief in those years that we were the next step. If we didn't stop them in that country, then we'd rather have the war somewhere else than on our own ground. I still think that's the best idea after seeing what happens to the country.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Absolutely.
the part of it, yeah. Interesting enough, one of the reasons I went into Special Forces and into MACVSOG was I just liked the Barry Sadler song and the John Wayne movie. And those are pretty remedial interest, I guess. But I had in my mind, both when I volunteered for the draft and when you had to go ahead and volunteer once I got interested in jump school and Special Forces and SOG, you had to volunteer. I tried to look ahead as best I could at 19 years old and say, what kind of man do I want to be and what do I want to live with the longest? And I didn't want to go through my life making excuses up for why I didn't go. And there was plenty of that. There really was. People didn't want to be in the combat arms or American infantry, Marine or Army. And even when they got in, people found ways to be in support. And we need support. There's no doubt about it. I'm not complaining. Wouldn't be here if it wasn't for support. We even had it in our own ranks. People didn't want to go on mission anymore. Paul being the difference. His theory was you're wearing a beret and you got the stripes on your sleeve and the patch on your shoulder. You show up and help. I mentioned Tony Coelho. He says somebody's got to teach the kids how to do it. So that's what he did on the thing. So anyway, that's the Purple Heart story. I think. Questions? You had some questions.
Yeah, that'll be no better way than you going around speaking and getting that story out like that. That'll be great. I commend
Keith
you.
McKim does that too. He speaks. He just came home from the National Convention of the Legion, and I have not heard him speak on that level, but around locally I have. And he and his team were there and got whacked when I was in the compound. And although I didn't know him, I knew what was going on about them. Type of thing. We didn't make, this might seem strange to some. I hear people say I lost my best friend in SOG. I never did. The reason is, officer, you aren't friends with the NCOs. And with the casualty rate, we all knew what the casualty rate was. I isolated myself in my mind and in my heart. And I don't mean that to be offensive. I just didn't want to stand the strain because we were losing people. If you went on mission, somebody was going to get hurt or killed. It was that simple. And the guys that did the repeat missions, none finer. They just kept getting on the aircraft. Maybe it's like I have 2 sons and a brother, firefighters, different firefighter when they come back from their first fatality in a fire, or a cop that comes back from that first fatality. Different man comes back each mission type of thing.
Absolutely.
What else you got, sir?
Let's see here. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Jason Holmes would like to know, during your time, were there any clash between Hatchet Force and Recon, or was it just a competitive nature between y'all SF men?
Probably a little bit of both, and let me qualify that. Yeah, they are A-type personalities, high testosterone, high competitiveness. Yet there was a super strong commitment to team commitment, taking care of each other and taking care of the team that I seen. I part of it was Hatchet Force in CCN now did not deploy as many times as Recon, because lifting Recon was 5 to 7, 9 guys maybe. Lifting us was a whole different thing, in or out. It maxed them out on air assets and things. Also, I was an officer. I also knew the cues when it was time for me to be somewhere else, when there was going to be a difference settled between 2 NCOs. It was not my concern. I only witnessed once, one of the few times I went to the club. There was some kind of argument going on, and a soldier threw his drinking glass in the face of the other soldier and knocked him clear down with the force of the throw. And then a fist fight erupted. The perpetrator was disciplined according to military stuff. I was a witness there. And if you want a fist fight with somebody good, go out and fist fight. Don't walk up and throw
a glass in somebody's face.
Throw a glass, hit him in the face. Wrong answer, soldier. You know, they like to compete, but it's not like I'm better than you. From what I noticed from my distance, when you're a young second lieutenant, sometimes you're invisible, and they say and do things without thinking about you there, or maybe they say and do things to impress you or teach you. They were more than willing to share what worked and didn't work. And for instance, if one team was going into a hot area and another team had already been there, they were, what I witnessed and heard, they were more than willing to say this, that, or the next thing, or you better be careful and think about this or think about that, or that kind of language. I only had one experience where 1-0, it's what we called the team leader, the 1-0. That was our call sign. He and I had a minor lock horns over range time. And I don't know what to tell you. My soldiers are important to me too.
Absolutely.
And I was on the schedule to go. It's my range time. And if the commander or the sergeant major says that this team has priority, okay, fine, I understand. We'll do something else till it's our turn. But come up and give me orders. No, thank you, soldier. Wait, I got to take care of my soldiers too.
Yeah,
did I answer the question?
Oh, absolutely, and that's pretty much how we've kind of gotten it from Mr. Terry, our CCC Hatchet Force representative, if you will.
We respected them. They were in a red hot situation most of the time. I mean, hokey smokes. I didn't notice a lot of guys wanting to leave CCN and go to CCC. They would go if ordered. And they'd whine about it, but that's what we do. Soldiers, I was once told, if they're not complaining, they're really worried about them. Something's bad.
Something's wrong.
Go find out.
infantry. What was
Oh,
the
okay.
op tempo like for Hatchet Force at that time? How often were you guys going on ops?
Uh, Hatchet Force was going out infrequently. I'd say every month, maybe. Um, the reason again was lift capability. Weather had part of it too, because sometimes you can get one bird in or two, and you can't get seven in or whatever it takes to lift the team. I always wanted to go more and do more. Uh, one of our longer missions was 11 days that we were out there. And yeah, we ran out of food and we ran out of water and everything else. And yeah, we got to get the food in I think they were, what were they, napalm canisters
Mm-hmm.
and that type of thing. But all that was a strain for us because you have trackers, they know where you're at. They know what those planes are dropping, and they're going to try to get there first. So it was get there, get them, and get away type thing.
I'm glad you mentioned the nape canister resupply because I'd seen that in a Mike Force group be resupplied, and I've heard people mention it, but I've never gotten an outright a person say they were on a mission that was
Yeah,
resupplied in that manner. That's I've
but
always found that
mostly
to be.
they'd come over and just hover and throw stuff out,
Mhm.
which was a lot better because they put it where you want it. You know, when you do the other thing, parachutes or something, you got all kind of problems. You know, what if they hang in triple canopy? Then what? You know,
Enemy's gonna
so
get
yeah,
it, but
it was yeah type thing.
wow.
Did I answer his
Jason.
question?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Yes, sir. Um,
Yeah.
Jason, how long into being at CCN before you were on a bright light?
Never went on one. That was one of my biggest dreams to go. I trained for it as best I knew how. Paul helped us train for that. Uh, I don't know why, other than again maybe lift capability. I even said, well, let us take it down to a spike team, 10 or 12 guys or something. What's it take? I know you know, we want to help and we're willing to help and we can do the job given the opportunity. But I don't remember when I was there, 69, 70 of a CCN Hatchet Force unit, say platoon or squad, going in on a bright light. Recon was pretty much taking care of their own. Maybe that was part of it. The brotherhood was strong, and I
Couldn't.
wouldn't think of stepping on toes or elbow in, but we could be ready to go. My Americans, I mean, they were like, "Yeah, let's go help." To do a bright light to help find a down pilot or to take down a, a American defectors, and there was two American defectors. I don't care what the media said, dang lies. They were there, and we knew about them. And if you could do one of those three things, that was considered a major accomplishment, like a feather in your war bonnet, I guess, type thing. Yeah,
Absolutely.
I thank you, Jason, for asking that, but just never got the opportunity.
Um, Jason, also, did you have anyone from your Hatchet Force that also ran Recon on occasion? We've heard from other CNCs that happened.
Yep, that was the NCOs passed through us like water through a funnel. That's where everybody wanted to be, was on Recon. We were considered almost an also ran uh, type of thing. No one was harsh with us or rude or unprofessional. I don't want that message to go out. They weren't. It's just that's where at CCN it was E5s and E6s running on the ground that I saw. Maybe there was maybe one or two E7s out there. Uh, Again, my sergeant Paul, he's very critical of senior NCOs for not going. And you know, what can you say? The guys were going when they were E5s and E6s, and you know, I just figured, you know, I wanted somebody that wanted to be there, wanted to do the job. There was some real horror stories on officers and NCOs trying to deal with draftees in that Vietnam War.
Oh
And
yeah.
I didn't want to deal with that type thing.
Mm, mm.
So yeah, in fact, Brew Taylor went over. Jim Skinner went over. Which God, Vaporlock can't remember the names of the other guys, but that's where they were all headed for. I did not notice Recon NCOs coming to the hatchet force so much. Usually it was the new guys. Is what I noticed, if I remember correctly.
Through speaking to him, he specifically said he was given the choice, which is rare. He said even at CCN, and he was like, after hearing tidbits about Recon, he was like, "No way am I ready. I need to go learn from the
Yeah,
Hatchet Force guys."
that's
And
the
he said
truth. I'll tell
he
you,
he
I
was
didn't have
glad
the choice. Yeah.
he was
Uh,
glad he hooked up. He was hooked up with you because he said he would have never ever been ready to go to North Carolina had he not gotten learned from you out there with the Hatchet
yeah,
Force.
sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, we. Yeah, he spoke the truth there. You know, what's the old saying? You learn from professor experience, and he gives you the test first and the answers second. Well, yeah, I got to live through the answers, and that kind of thing. What I did notice was the willingness to learn, to adapt, to change. I didn't notice a lot of, oh, that won't work type of thing. It was more, how can we make it work? I've been impressed all these years by the after action reports where they went through, at least the ones I sit in. Um, what could you have done better, faster, safer, better tactics, on and on and on. And it made us think, and then to develop some kind of a training experience to fix that. At one point, we had a mob situation. We were out of water, and we knew by map recon where we could get water. We went there, and the brew just stampeded into the water. We had no security. Well, guess what we worked on when we got back? You will follow
Security.
orders, and you will go up, and we will do this the correct way, because guess who else knows where the water is? And where should we be? After so many days, we know the train they went over, they're going to be out of water. You drink a lot of water, that temperature, that humidity, that much weight you're carrying. And I also need
Terrain.
to speak out. We didn't go real long distances. We were at patrolling pace, looking for trouble, in the sense that we could be attacked at any moment, type of deal. So we went slowly and carefully. Did we sit down and rest? Yes, because we were carrying heavy loads and we needed to do that. Did we have a procedure for it? Yes. We didn't take off our web gear. We didn't take off our boots. Ain't no way. You slept at night in your boots. You wore
That's
your
actually our next question. Will be what was your night issues that leads in nice? What was standard procedure for staying overnight in the field? Site selection, security, sleeping arrangements, etc.
okay. Sleeping arrangements was, we did things in pairs. You had a battle buddy. I think I already mentioned when we used a map recon and also a reconnaissance recon of where we were and how we traveled to pick a place. We liked the high ground rather than the low ground. We did do once or twice, maybe they call a button hook, where you'd proceed along and then loop back to have your RON, rest overnight. We always dug in. I know they have training scars nowadays. Oh, you can't teach the soldiers to dig in because it'll screw up the training area. Well, tell them to fill a hole back up, or something like that. Because for us, the amount of ground fire that was coming in would cut down the trees sometimes. So you need to be in a hole if you wanted to be safe. 50% security was the minimum. We didn't put out any listening post or I forget the name of it would be out there by themselves in the dark. No. If you wanted at least the mountain yards I had, if you wanted them to be out there by themselves in the dark, you'd have to shoot them and drag their body out there. There ain't no way. Nobody wanted to do that, because we have the trackers. They were all around you, and they were doing things to keep you awake and harass you and let you know they were out there messing around. You had to be careful with putting claymores out. Maybe we put them out just before dark, and then move them again so that they didn't find them and turn them around type of deal. What else? Let's see. I got to look here at the procedures. Site selection, again, the high ground, if we could get it. Also, a couple of times we would sit down, eat supper, clean weapons, rattle around, dig around, scratch around a little bit, then get up and move to the primary site. Mm-hmm. What we were hoping happened was the runner that was going to leave as soon as we sit down to get reinforcements, we wouldn't be in the same place that he thought we were going to be in. Was it successful? I guess so. We're still here talking about it. Security posture to me means how many people are awake. The first few days out there, you don't have to worry about too much about people going to sleep because everybody's pretty stressed and adrenaline's running and that kind of thing. But after a while, wear and tear and exhaustion is going to take place. So that's another reason to sleep or be in the hole with somebody else. Personal needs, urination, defecation, that's done in the perimeter in the hole. So you dig the hole deeper, you have extra dirt, kick some dirt over it, grit your teeth, gut it out. That kind of thing. No check in the perimeter. I did it once. Terrible mistake, crawled out of the perimeter, so I got to sit outside the perimeter all night. Lucky I didn't get myself killed. It was just plain stupid, but I was worried about it, so I made a decision and had to pay the price for it. But at 20 guys, you got a real small, around 20-ish, let's say, small perimeter. We could still talk a little bit to each other. They knew where we were. It wasn't like we were hiding, for heaven's sakes. I mean, that was another one of those times where once we sit down and got dug in, we heard the shots going down the valley. I'm sure that's what they were telling them, is this is where they're at. We had the ERT-10 I spoke of earlier. If we imagined and hoped that we would get them here if we needed them and they could read that signal. I guess technology's come quite a ways nowadays and they can do even better with that. And I'm glad that could happen. Did I answer the question?
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Absolutely. That was perfect, actually. Mr. Terry mentioned the John Walker spy ring. I left that one out as well. That was a huge.
I'm glad to know his name.
That whole family, the Walker family leak spy ring were just a terrible.
Yeah, I didn't have the bullhorns hollering at us, but some of our guys did. And I'm sure it's a life-altering event.
Mr. Lynn was one of them, actually.
Yeah. I don't remember the names again, but they were NCOs from the South that used dogs for hunting. And somehow they reasoned out that in the jungle, because of the moisture and humidity and things, they're not really tracking on scent, they're tracking on sound. So sound, security, silence, we worked on. But things happen with that many guys. A lot of the mountain yards coughed a lot. Mm-hmm. And I can't make myself understood sometimes how loud you think a cough is.
Especially at Terry's jungle,
Yeah, type of thing. And you got to understand, too, our indigenous soldiers, they were greenhorns. They've been living the situation and surviving this situation. They were with us to help their situation and their family and things. So they were serious fighters. I did not find the Brew as aggressive fighters as, say, the Cambodians. Wow, those guys. I mean, they came there to fight, and fight they did. Chinese, we didn't have Chinese Nungs, only a few, because of the ages. They were usually the Vietnamese Chinese leader in those indigenous ranks. Their wives were Vietnamese women, and affectionately known as Cholon Cowboys. The
Hmm.
sons, Cholon being a Chinese part of town in Saigon for uh, Chinese people. But yet their discipline was uh, they had their own discipline and their own ranks based by the oldest, most experienced person in our platoon. And I just had to look at him if there was a situation going, and I guess if he seen desperation in my eyes or unknowing in my eyes, he took over and started
Yeah.
barking things to
Uh,
do, and things got done. Type thing. I wish I could have known him better. Type of deal.
the Nungs were, especially at CCN, when up north where it all started pretty much, and the FOB 1 and 4 and all of that. The
Yeah.
Nungs were the early, and Cam Duck, I should say, they were the earliest Recon
Yeah.
members, indigenous. I
Yeah.
mean, they
And,
were
and
tough men.
they were, as I understood it, there was briefed on it. Their society or their culture was a warrior culture, something like the Gurkha people, and uh, your status and things were measured by how well you did. But also, they had a high attrition rate. We were
Oh,
pretty hard
yes.
on their ranks, type of deal. It was thinning out
Yeah, there
because
at the end, like you said, there at the end, even I think probably starting 69 and 70, they had earned the reputation and, like you said, had lost so many men that they had pretty much gotten the respect and the cush job to where they could just be security base security and
Mhm.
stuff like
Yeah,
that because A,
yeah,
numbers, and they had been working so much.
yeah. And they knew there was a ethnicity issue, racial issue between them and the Vietnamese, and if the North Vietnamese won, they were going to be pretty hard on the Nugs and their
Oh
families.
yeah.
I just have to believe that they carried that out. I don't know. I was fortunate enough to meet my Vietnamese counterpart years later at Pikes Peak Community College in Colorado Springs. I was teaching classes, a night instructor, extra job from my high school career teacher. Come out of the class at say 10, 15, 10, 20, and I noticed this Asian person walking down the hall. Him and I were the only ones in the hall, and it wasn't a racial hate issue. It's just an alert issue. You know, here comes this Asian person. So we're both looking at each other like this. And then he started grinning and laughing and pointing his finger. It was the lieutenant and captain that I had served with all those years, 2 continents away, type of deal. And I was so glad to see him and meet his family. It was grand and see the work he was doing for the Vietnamese refugee community and got to help a little bit. And I would urge the modern times help the Afghan refugees. I know there's a lot of press, oh, they're all spies and everything. Well, yeah, I'm sure there are a few. The only thing I can say on that, to be professionally polite, uh, we had one issue of that, and he and I talked it over coffee. And then the next time I seen him, all he would say is, the first time he said, that guy's VC. And I said, okay, we reported. We did to Colorado Springs Police and to the FBI. And then a month later or so, I had coffee with him again, and he said, that person doesn't live here anymore.
Oh,
And I don't know what he meant, but his tone was real serious, and I didn't ask questions.
ooh,
So I would say,
okay.
help the people. They helped us. And if they'll more, at least the Vietnamese were, I'm sure the Afghans are the same way. They're more than willing to point out the spies if they know about them, I would say, because it's to their safety and benefit type thing.
Uh, Getting to before the next question, getting to it, I've heard that there was some of the SF men, they did end up buying tracts of land in North Carolina to get the Montagnards, but I mean
Uh-huh.
that
Yeah.
they even said that the Montagnards were such a fierce force that they had talked and the pipe dream plans were to bring every Montagnard that helped with SOG or any of the projects back and basically let them be their own National Guard force. And could you imagine how loyal they'd be to the Americans had we
Yeah.
brought them
I've,
back home and actually fulfilled what we promised them? I mean,
sure. I've visited with vets, special forces vets that have talked it that very way. excuse me, they were more than glad to help, and glad it came out good. And it was like you said, I understand they help with the special forces training of the young soldiers at this time. They're actively involved with that training because they're trying to help. They paid the price. They lost their country, their job, their house, their family, everything else. They understand the threat and what can happen if you do nothing about it. And
Absolutely.
I can't say as I know one personally right now, but certainly wouldn't pass up the chance to meet one or go observe the training. Sometimes they let older guys like me observe the training that's going on. I can't think of the name of it right now. It's their final exercise that they go with.
It's gosh, why am I blanking on it? It's
Yeah, me too.
geez, somebody in the thing will help us out. Robin Sage, it may have
Robin
changed.
Sage, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
We
Type
need to
thing.
get
And
you in touch with Terry offline. The fifth group reunion is coming up this month, and you need to see about. I need to get you hooked up with Terry and Vern Ward from FOB1 in my lot. They go and
okay,
they really show
that's
the
where our
SAW
brew is
guys.
from. Yeah,
Yeah, they show the guys especially the SAW guys, a real good time out
yeah.
there.
There were other tribes than the brew.
Oh, Rade, Sedang, Jirai,
Yep, Mio.
Mio. There's seven, I think, seven big ones.
Something like that. Yeah. Brew Taylor also, who has a strong number on Christian Mountain Yard people still in country type thing. Back to
And
this
we're
question,
hoping,
it says, "What's the furthest you went across the fence?" Oh gosh, I wish I could tell you the exact number of meters. If you look on the map and see that Laotian salient, my missions were all inside of there type of deal. And I know Lynn and some of them went way deep, but again, just didn't for whatever reason. We got pulled out by or flight called Heavy Hook that came out of Nakhon Phanom, Thailand. Came and lifted us out when nobody else could or would. And thanks again, guys.
Those Heavy Hook guys were the NKP group. They were some brave souls over there.
They were something. And we didn't know about how strong the prop blast was on those. We couldn't hardly run against it through the foliage to get in the cotton picking aircraft because they're not sitting there idling. They're ready to go.
As soon as you get on, they're flaring out of there.
Can we share the pictures of another twin prop lifting us on the ladder type
yes,
thing?
sir. I've got the full not the rope ladder, but here's one of y'all.
Yep, that's Marble Mountain. The CCN were training. In fact, the tall one standing at the bottom of the ladder. That's Pat. And we're learning to climb the ladder there. And then there's a picture of if you got it of them flying away and stuff. Part of the problem we had to train with was keeping security, of course, while they're trying to do that. Also, that's down what they call the hell hole, down the in the middle of the aircraft where they're climbing up into. A lot of times we just climbed up to get enough guys on it, and you hooked in with your stable rig with a snap link to one of those vertical cables. It's hard as heck to climb when you're exhausted. You notice the rucksacks are gone. It's just too heavy. Now, we did have a couple mountain yards. They were like, heck with you, Lieutenant. I'm getting in that airplane. They climbed right up that ladder.
Wow.
It's quite an event. It'll increase your grip on those rungs. That ladder, I got to tell you.
I cannot imagine.
Did it under combat or battle situations. But we trained for it so we could do it properly. The rucksacks we snap linked on the bottom of the ladder so we could have them. Landing was always a problem. The pilots are doing the best they can. And the crew chief's looking at, and the whole crew's watching and trying to help. And we had some guys bang a little hard, and we had some guys get drugged, and also drug on the tarmac or through the trees. But you know what? It was better than the place they were at.
I was about to
There's only
say, you
one
better be
nutsack.
there than being shot at.
Yeah, multiple times. I know you may have another picture there of training exercise, pull us out on the 120-foot nylon goal line.
I've got that I'm about to bring up. I was going to say, though, I
Oh,
noticed
okay.
a 173rd patch. Would that be
Yes, it
Lynn
is.
Black, or is that somebody?
That's dope. That's Jim Skinner.
Okay, wow. So he was another 173rd man as well.
Yep. And
Wow.
he passed through our ranks. He was a non-qualified special forces soldier getting qualified, type of a
Wow.
deal. Never failed us. Fine man. You talk about the competition. Okay, he comes into a unit. He was a truck driver in a leg, I believe, and leg mean non-airborne qualified. Fine soldier, never questioned his courage. He was dedicated to the people, or the little people type of there. Good man. I hope I got that right. That's who that is. You're testing my
I'm
memory, young man.
I'm definitely gonna. I've heard that name, and I'm gonna look up more into Mr. Jim.
If
He
if
sounds
you
like a
find
hell
him,
of a man.
please tell me. I haven't been able to find him.
I
He
will.
went on 3 missions with me. I would.
I'll start beating the bushes and see if I
Yeah, if
can.
there's some way to find him. That's them climbing up the deal. I believe that's Pat's team, but he'd have to tell me for sure, I guess. Type of a deal. 'Cause see, those are Chinese or Vietnamese. Those aren't mountain yards, and I need to be careful how I say this. The skin color is different.
And they're
Okay,
also
not
a little bit bigger than the
yeah, they're more
yards.
muscular in their nature, their physique.
Hmm
They are of different ethnic extract. I'm sure somebody, anthropologist or somebody, knows all the details. They're more, and because they live out and walk around in the highlands, they're more muscular type thing. Some
Their
of the
ethnic
mountains. Go
their
ahead.
ethnic lineage going back from, like you said earlier, with the Nungs and the Chinese, the Nungs being from China, literally right there at the border, as the
Mhm.
Montagnards have a. I don't want to get this wrong, but someone said they've got a. Gosh, I can't remember the strand. Not strand, but the lineage in them that's not so Vietnamese and Chinese. It's
Right.
more
That's what.
Islander, if you will. It's something like that. But
Yeah,
there's
that's what I
a
understood too. Yeah, they. Uh,
very interesting differences though
yeah.
between the groups.
Yes,
Um,
and I'm speaking of Brew mountain
oh,
yards too. I've had no connection with other tribes.
the brew we've definitely heard quite a lot. I've got a range shot and then a picture of you and Mr. Lynn I wanted to show. Would this be the range that the hatchet force would train with as well, guys? I'm going to get to your questions in just a moment. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's it right there. That's at the base of Marble Mountain. Yeah, there.
Okay.
We're
Wow.
practicing different positions and immediate action drills and things. We were very blessed with seemed like unlimited amounts of ammo, and everybody likes to shoot, so let's go to the range and shoot and practice stuff. Moving forward, moving sideways, coming on line, moving backwards to get out
Oh,
of the kill zone type thing. I think I mentioned grabbing a wounded person and covering them, dropping rucksacks, heavy rucksacks. You can't fight with a heavy rucksack. You have to drop it type thing.
wow.
Later on, we had special releases. We could get out of them faster type of deal. The Marble Mountains, I guess some of the folks know about it. They there were VC observers in there. Uh, uh, that mountain, there was a Buddhist monastery, I believe, was what it was called,
Yes, sir.
type of thing. But what are the monks supposed to do when the VC says we're going to be here? If you refuse them, well, there's the outcome for that type of deal. So, and did we get a few stray shots? And were they recording everything we do? Yeah, that's why we went out. And their mountain was at the base of our range, and I got to tell you, there were a few stray rounds that went up on the mountain.
I am. There's a lot of history with the mountain. I've got some great photos, and I don't have them saved, but I've got one that I'll pull up that I posted on the Facebook group that I run, my secret group with all the SOG gentlemen.
Right.
There
Yeah, there it
is,
is. Yeah. Yeah, I remember that. Oh, yeah.
boy, I don't see how y'all. I
I've been
mean,
up those stairs. I got I had, I don't have it anymore. A picture of myself and a monk and a Marine with some media people there. Yeah, they, crazy world. Yeah. That's all hand
whew.
carved too, Uh,
I've got a picture of the. I know you remember the big Buddha. I've got a great photo of the Buddha that I'll send to you. Now that I can't, I dropped the ball having some good pictures that I could show you, but I'll send those to you as well that you'll get a kick
okay.
out of.
Thank you. Well, we
Beautiful.
can meet
That's
again.
actually
Yeah.
those are the clearest photos I've ever found. That's from a man from 1971 that was at CCN.
Wow.
He shared those, and those are some of the clearest inside and outside of the cave and mountain that I've ever seen.
Wow. Yeah, I'd like
Amazing
to see them.
photos. I will get
Mhm.
them to you this afternoon. Daniel would like to know, did you guys have any special signal to alert other American team members of the possible threat of an indige that may have been an enemy or had flipped that were maybe going to shoot y'all or do something sneaky?
Oh yeah, that was always an issue. I can't say as I had one in my platoon because darn few mountain yard turncoats, but they also could be. What do you do when the VC puts a pistol to your wife's head or your kid's head? We can. Oh yeah, I'll do this or that. The next thing, yeah, okay, till you live through it, and then change your mind. There was concerns. I like I say, I didn't have them particularly, but we were briefed on a recon team where they knew they were being followed, and a indigenous team member decided to turn on a flashlight.
Hmm.
Well, to me, that's not a mistake. That's a turncoat signaling exactly where uh, they were, and that needs to be dealt with. Uh, Usually, I can't say usually, what I was led to believe, and I believe it, that the indige will take care of that situation themselves. Okay, they
Mhm.
already know where you are because they've been tracking you, and the light came on. And you know, we're here, what, 50 years later, making decisions what those guys made in a heartbeat, and they were trying to survive. And the most precious thing is your team members, especially your American team members and your indigenous team members. Uh, Most guys probably couldn't tell you a lot of the politics or the religious issues. I wasn't a saved man then. I am a Christian, a man of faith, saved now. Um, but the Bible too tells us defend your family and your friends and your country and your church. And we could go into that on a whole new other interview. Uh, so we did what we had to do to survive. War crimes are still wrong. They were wrong to do them then, and they stayed wrong, and they'll be wrong in the future, I'm sure. And there's a lot of talk about who signed what and all that. Murder is wrong. Fighting is different. Um, so we go through those things. We had strong vigilance, I guess is the word, at the CCN compound, because got to remember you got laundry girls in there, you got cooks, you got barbers, you got supposedly they're all vested family members of the guys that work there or soldier there. Well, okay. But bottom line is when CCN got overrun, the attackers tunneled in from the POW camp quite a distance away. And they knew who was who and where was where. So that tells us that, yeah, there's the confidence. The They had inside intelligence to do that type of deal. So did I answer the question?
Absolutely. And speaking more to that, I've heard from several of the and there's actually names mentioned. I didn't realize this one is so up to date of where the men were, but I've heard that they that either Pat Watkins or Bob Blatherwick, one of them ended up catching the barber. They knew one of them was walking off. For to get to pinpoint
Really?
positions for artillery, and then I believe they found the barber dead the next morning, to where he had
No, I wouldn't. Yeah, I
had
wouldn't doubt
something.
it.
So I mean it was clear also while the way they came in, but they also immediately killed every indigenous soldier to start off the attack. So that
Well,
alone lets you know
one of
that
the policy at night was we didn't wear steel pot. And if we got attacked inside the compound, one of the policy was you put on your steel pot. Anybody that didn't have a steel pot got killed, period. Because a sapper's not coming through with a steel pot. They didn't know we had that policy. Did some of our folks maybe get killed in that? Yeah, Americans got killed, indigenous got killed. It was a war and it was a battlefield and they were fighting hard. There's no doubt about it. I came in shortly after that. In fact, I'm glad to hear the name about Bob. He was my roommate in the officer quarters for a while.
wow.
He's alive and well. I'd like to talk to him. He had plenty of
I'll
experience.
I'll get in touch with Tilt with John Stryker Meyer after this, and I'll get you connected with him and get you in touch with
Yeah,
Bob.
I would like to do a cast with him also if it won't offend you.
Oh no, if we could get I've not been able to speak to Bob, but if we could get connected after we get you connected, by all
Yeah,
means, I would love to have
yeah.
both of you on here.
What I meant was with Bob too. I'm glad to
Yeah.
talk to him. If he's in Colorado, tell him I'll teach him how to fish for trout and hunt elk. If you don't already know. But I would like to do one with Tilt. He was one of ours, and he was there the same time I was.
Oh
And we just
wow.
haven't connected for whatever reason. So
Okay, well, I've shared it. He's a member of the group, and I'll share it and let him know that you're looking to reconnect with him, and I'll get you in
yeah,
touch with him.
please do. We got to get the word out. We really do. Your question here: what types of operations? Ours in those days were called search and clear. We had a target a lot of the times in mind. One of the targets was what we called a way station. It's where guys walking down the trail would stay. They had bunk beds 3 and 4 deep, and the only thing above ground would be the vertical. What do you call it? They weren't really rafters; they were a grass hut, but they could roll out of those and drop down into little trenches to be safe from our aircraft fire, or at least safer type thing. Search and destroy is what when we hit a target, we didn't leave it standing. We did what we could when we left. We called in TAC air on it, type of a deal. If we found standing crops, we get the mountain yards on line, fingertip to fingertip, and stomp those crops flat to cut down on the food. You have to understand, but not, and the audience too, is we were up against a very determined enemy. They walked down from North Vietnam through the jungle the whole way with our Air Force pounding them and us taking shots at them and ambushing them and everything else in the jungle, bugs and snakes and disease and all that stuff. That wasn't any sissy out there. And I'm going to tell you what, I know a lot of guys get upset with me and chastise me. Say, you like the enemy? No, but I respect them. And if you don't respect them, they're going to hang your Green Beret on their scalp belt, young man. They are determined to be there. It's not that, yes, there is a certain amount of fear. You need to have that fear and respect to who you're up against. It's not like you're doing, I don't even know what to say. We found the VC not as fierce or as well trained or as committed as NBA. And Pathat Lao, the few that I was aware of, same way. They lived in that country. They were trying to stay alive. If they didn't do what they were told, whole village was going to get massacred. So, but the NVA, as I understand it, there's a book called The Phoenix Program. I forgot the author's name. He details out what was the mindset of an NVA soldier. Well worth the reading. Well worth it. I wish I'd have had it back then. And I think we need to bring that forward against whoever we're up against, Al Qaeda or whatever it is, the names, I don't know them very well, because these are determined people. And they're there with a cause and with a reason. Yeah, maybe they're savage and maybe they do awful things. Well, then you better be warned, because anyway.
Yeah,
Get
they
off my pulpit. I'm sorry.
people that I mean, I always say it there, people think of them, especially today, that people that aren't into the Vietnam War like all of us are, and they look at them and think they're primitive, and which some of them were, and they weren't all that good, weren't well trained, and that could not be further from the truth. I
That's
mean,
right. Yeah.
to be determined enough to walk down to fight y'all all along the way, and then to take over South Vietnam, they were very determined and they were very skilled.
Absolutely. I did remember, had a little thing I wanted to add in, reference the PTSD thing. I'm 74 and I've been dealing with PTSD since 1969. In my experience, it doesn't go away. It gets better. The worst thing you can do is get into the booze and the dope. The best thing you can do is go get help. And here's what I'd like to extend on that. As much bad press as there is about the VA, they know better and do better than most everybody else. The reason is they have the biggest clientele and the most experience with it. And nowadays, we have actual combat veterans that work in the VA type thing. So it's better than it was. Okay, and I'm talking mostly to the older guys. What I tell everybody, especially the younger guys, is find some kind of therapy that works for you. Ride it hard until you wear it out and then change. If animals work for you, a horse or a dog, go get one. Get the proper training and deal with it. Okay. For me, in the early years, painting pictures helped the most, silly as it sounds. And it was a Vietnamese refugee woman who taught us those things. She was a refugee, left as a very young grade schooler, escaped out with her family, watched her father drown, trying to get the family on the boat. She had dual master's degree in psychology, counseling and guidance, and fine arts. And she would look at our pictures and she would give us what she called an analysis. We called it autopsy, because she would gut you out. And without knowing you, even your name or the color of your eyes, she could tell you your psychological state. And then she would direct us to who could help us the most. Works great. The other thing is good that helped me a lot was the Bible. And you need to read it. And you need to do more than study ancient religious cultures. You need to put it in practice. If you can find a church you can deal with, that'll help too. But there's a warning with that. If you're going to talk about the war, you need to talk to veterans that know about it, not to people who don't know about it or are against it. One of the churches in our community will not fly the American flag on the campus or inside the building. That's not a place. I still speak out against them. Anyway, the other is get into faith. At least it worked for me and a bunch of guys I deal with. There are civilian groups out there, I call them. Mighty Oaks is a good one. They have a set program. They have no professionally trained or educated counselors. They're all combat vets. They're mostly Marines. And they got a program that really helps. So in the recent history, that's helped me a lot. Like I say, I'm in my mid-70s. It doesn't get better. It stays with her. You learn to deal with it and cope with it. You learn to control yourself. But it changes as we get older.
No.
I have people who, there's some, you can't explain it in professional mental health terms, but when the veteran can do something creative as compared to destructive, they change. I have a very good friend, Ray. When he builds rifles, he went to gunsmith school in Trinidad, Colorado. Changed him for the better, a lot better. Another friend braids. He braids for horse bridles and halters. 13 strands, I'm told, like the old vaqueros did out of the American West, especially California, Texas, those kind of areas. Painting, of course, sculpting, of course. It's something when they create, even their physical stature changes. When Ray called me at 1 o'clock in the morning, I thought he's in jail. Need bail money, tell you the truth. It showed a picture of his premier project he did as a gunsmith student. Everything changed. It did for the other men too. So, and I don't have female contact veterans, combat veterans. So that would be my encouragement, just from an old soldier talking, because I don't have the education in that. Did I answer the question about the last question? Okay.
Absolutely.
If I don't, you tell me.
There's the Mighty Oaks, I think, is helped out by a lot of the Force Recon and MACVSOG guys. I think Tom Satterley from Delta, who was a prior Marine, helps out with it. There's a long list of guys that help out there. I've heard a lot of good things about their programs.
Let me warn all my SF brothers: if you go sit with 10 or 15 Marines for a week, it's like a men's Bible conference I went to for a week, and I was the only one that wasn't a Southern Baptist preacher. That was an interesting event also. So you might want to choose your friends, you know. Where were the code? Were there any code names in HF? Yes.
What was your code name?
Well, it changed each time. Most of the time I went with the Mongoose.
Okay.
Just because it was available on the list, and I knew Mongoose could beat up Cobra Snake, so I, in my immaturity and youth, picked that one. But we also had code numbers and words to say, for instance, where the extraction LZ was, where the E&E corridor was, where the extraction LZ could be. A lot of that went away when we got the K30, KY38. We could talk plain talk instead of code words and things. It is really hard to remember code words and numbers when you're straining. I guess everybody's got a pretty good idea how much I can remember. We even had configurations of a number or letter to put out, like out of branches or something, for aircraft to see, to know if we were in an E&E corridor.
Oh, wow.
Corridor type of thing. If I could remember some of those words, I would tell you, Jason. One mission and they're gone, you know.
That's pretty much
for the security purpose. You wouldn't have the same word for the same thing all the time.
That was right on the money. Absolutely. Bud, did your guests have any involvement with the super secret Blackwatch project in Laos? I don't actually even know what Blackwatch is, to be honest. I'm sorry.
Me either. Now, Paul was with the White Star program, and that's when he got his first Purple Heart. And I'm going to tell a story on it, Paul. He was a mechanic and rigger with a White Star project, young soldier out of the 82nd Airborne. And he was walking around at night for some reason. He ran into two old women and a boy, and the boy had a homemade gun and shot Paul in the leg with a bolt. It wasn't even a bullet. And that's a great source of amusement for all of us, that, you know, you want to be a tough Green Beret, and two old women and a boy shot you, you know, so they rub that in as deep as they can, as many times as they can. He handles it good-naturedly, you know. I did run into some other White Star guys.
Dick Meadows was a
Blackwatch. I haven't.
Yeah, I've not even heard of Blackwatch, to be honest.
It certainly could be real, because I'm sure it was classified. So
I'll be looking into it, James, and I'll let you know whenever we have another guest. I'll write that down and talk about it.
Something I wanted to bring out too. Thank you for reminding me. I don't know if you're old enough, but some of the people watching might be. In my early teen years and through my teen years and even early 20s, every now and then they'd find a Japanese soldier from World War II on some Polynesian island somewhere. And he'd been there for years and years and years and finally walked out of the jungle. And in a way, I was kind of like that until just the last year. I isolated myself emotionally, and I think the word is psychologically, and also remotely. I live on 10 acres in the mountains, and I like it. Like I say, I got gold medal trout fishing 5 miles away and trout everywhere else, and elk, deer, bear, antelope. What do you want to hunt? We can do it here, and I like that. And I like the privacy of it. I like the quiet of it, and I like the people up here. I hope they like me. I know I got criticized in one therapy session if something's wrong with you when you do that. Well, wait a minute. A lot of people like to live in the country. And she says, you like your dog better than some people? I said, yeah.
Absolutely.
That's exactly right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they don't lie to me, cheat me, or anything else. Yeah, I like my dog and my horse. I truly do. And I'll tell you that and tell them that also.
As a fellow country boy and a dog rescuer and cat rescuer, actually, I prefer my dogs and cats over quite a few people that I know, actually.
Yeah, that's right. Type thing. It's just human nature. I think gets back to whatever therapy works for a person.
You know, Lynn Black is painting. Since you were talking about painting, he is a hell of a painter.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
I'll send you some photos of his stuff as well. I got a lot of stuff I need to send you today, but I'll send you some stuff. He is damn talented. I'll tell you. I didn't realize he had been painting as long, but even with his length of work, it's beautiful work. Jason, did the leak in Saigon affect the hatchet forces as like it did with Recon?
Sure. Anytime the enemy's got inside information, knows about you. I don't know. Maybe the guys around us didn't have a bullhorn or something. You know, I don't know. And I still don't know if. I mean, how do you know when you find their bunker on the LZ? Okay, they were stationed there on purpose, LZ watch, and they were living there. Okay, so did they get inside information of all the LZs that are in Laos? This one's going to be hot, probably, maybe. I don't know. Like I said earlier, we went in heads up, eyes open, guns up. And a lot of people, I guess, are concerned when I use the term looking for trouble. You better be looking for trouble. If you're walking around out there like you're on a hike, they're going to take advantage of it. They're there with a purpose also, type of thing. To me, it's offensive, and traitors like that, I don't have patience for them, and the pastor's trying to help me with that. But wow, I mean, traitor is a traitor, and that kind of thing. So maybe that's enough said about that.
Yeah, it's a bad subject. Ingracio Esmenda, LT, besides your Prick 25 and ERC 10, who else carried camo for redundancy purposes?
Just Brew Taylor and me. It was about it. We didn't want to trust the indigenous with the ERC 10, actually URT radio. They were so hard for us to get, especially because the priority went to Recon. There just wasn't that many. They weren't in our supply channel as much as they were Air Force supply channels. And the supply people can tell you all the issues there. That was our lifeline. We had the PRC-25, the first missions, and then went to the KY-38, was twice as wide, twice as heavy as the 25. The 25 was upgraded to a PRC-77. They were hooked with a coax cable, probably as big around as my pointer finger. The Brew Taylor carried that one in front, one in back, in addition to his rucksack type of thing. And did we go light on him for ammo? Yeah, but everybody carried extra batteries too, because you needed 2 for the KY-38 and 1 for the 77. Did we want better? Yeah. The first mission or two, we had those like Korean or World War II walkie-talkie things. They're about, that long and big around, and you could probably throw them further than you could talk with them. And we had some little handset things. They didn't. The jungle somehow ate up the radio wave, and it ate the batteries. We didn't have lithium batteries. One of the biggest fear was we don't have enough batteries to carry, and they were like a brick type thing, but nobody complained about carrying those. We needed them. They did have sensors then, and we got semi-involved with that. They were putting the sensors around the different parts, the Ho Chi Minh Trail. Ho Chi Minh Trail wasn't one little trail down through the jungle. It was a network of trails and roads. They even moved things by water in RAO, put them in 50-gallon drums that were color-coded, and would push them with the current on down to whatever station needed to grab the yellow ones or whatever. There was wires laying on the ground and on posts and trees. We had recon people bring in pieces of those type of things. What else can I tell you along on the communication line? We tried out some little sensors, and supposedly they told you seismic movement around your perimeter. But you got all kinds of creatures in the jungle, snakes.
The wind blowing as well would even, I've heard, trip it off. If you got a good gust, it would.
Yeah, those kind of things. And it was so new, we didn't have trust in them. That to us, it was just extra weight. They did have a sensor that was, probably big around like so, and it had fins on it and a fakey plastic bush. It looked like a cactus. And they dropped them by air, and they were trying to get to see who was moving between point A and point B. And I know a humorous point, one of our lieutenants asked what this cord was for and gave it a yank, and it deployed the parachute. Of course, he'll live with that the rest of his life if he's still alive. They did have some recon teams place those in specific places. Okay. We were up to do that, but somehow it never happened because we had more guys, we could carry more weight, I guess was what they were thinking. And this is a story that I'm going to spread. I knew the guys and they wouldn't talk about it. So here it is. They had the sensor and they got put in, they were supposed to put it in a specific 10-digit place. Well, I guess they didn't know it was voice activated. So they were going along saying, this is real fun till this ain't no fun no more carrying this thing through the jungle. And we don't like the Air Force and they have blue uniforms and we don't, all this stuff. So they just said, nobody's going to know where we plant it. So we'll plant it. They did. Mission complete, got extracted. Well, when they got to the tarmac, the commander and sergeant major and other folks were there with new rucksacks. Full rucksacks. Played them a little tape on a cassette plate player, which was high tech those days, and all their lamentations. And he sent them back out And that was so I'm passing along an old sergeant's story to a lieutenant, but it's a heck of a story. And I could see that particular colonel doing that. And that sergeant major, like, no, you don't lie to the commander and the sergeant major. No matter how bad it is, you tell the truth. And they'll deal with it for you. For there, and also send a message to all the rest of us. When you're told to put it in point A, better dang sure put it in point A. And that's one of those sensors that we were told are also the way that they found out that we had defectors from the European country. It was a Scandinavian country. They were nurses, and they left there's a big hospital ship in the bay out there, and supposedly they defected and actually had recordings of them where they had dropped the sensor into the trees and the parachute hung in the triple canopy and picked up the voice stuff. So did I ever
Holy
hear that tape? No,
cow.
no, I didn't hear that tape, but the guys I heard it from, I would trust. They were.
I mean, that jives because there's tons of, well, not tons, there's several CCN books that talk about Eastern European, maybe East German, it could clearly now be Scandinavian
Yeah,
nurses out with MVA units. Wow.
yeah, yeah.
Leaving probably the USS Repos or
That's
whatever
it,
that.
right? Thank you, repos. Yeah, I couldn't. We sent a lot of our when our indigenous mountaineers got wounded. If you sent them to a Vietnamese hospital, they weren't coming back alive. So we used assets like that. And also we had very fine infirmaries at CCN and very finely staffed. That's where the medics did their work because they could take care of that soldier. And they also helped take care of the families. I want that to be known. They were not hiding in the compound. They would help, and they did help. And it was good for our morale, and it was good that, we didn't have to take them where they would be harmed, type of thing. So,
Yeah, there's some horror stories about the yards not getting the treatment they deserved. Jason, who was the biggest man you ever went on a mission with, and who was the smallest?
wow. Limited point of view, I would have to say Rodney Gordon. Hope he doesn't imagine if I mention his name. He was a big guy. Being a big guy with 5'2" or 3" mountain yards all around you is not an asset. Let me guess who the American is because I want to shoot him first. Well, if you're head and shoulders or taller than everybody else, guess who the American is? And we did smallest. I'm thinking you're meaning American, sir, Jason, sir. I think I could have been close to that. I was 5'6". Tony Coelho was maybe that height. There's shorter. He was a veteran of the end of World War II, Korea, and Vietnam, multiple tours type deal. Distinguished Service Cross at in Purple Heart at CCN, E7.
Wow.
I think that's the best I could do. The Cambodians were probably the taller. Few of the Chinese were taller. If they had Vietnamese extract, they were shorter and slighter built. I think we already discussed the mountain
big guy
the ones on our compound. Part of the issue is the what if the biggest guy gets hit?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I know we see in the movies where they carry a guy, and we did, but through the jungle and how far you got to go. I think Rose gave you Medal of Honor winner. Kerry Rose talked about that. You got a rucksack, you got the extra weapons, extra weight. It's not a 2-man job. Sometimes it's 4 men, and you got to rotate them. There's not stretchers because they're too hard to get through the jungle. So you use ponchos, and then you find out the reason that they have stretchers, with a stronger fabric, stronger sticks. You can't tie them on like a tiger and walk through the jungle. I mean, it's a chore, and it needs to be practiced. We practiced doing it and rotating and keeping security, but and we had to do it a few times. Yes, we did. Type of deal. I hope I answered his question. Yeah. If I had to choose between two NCOs I didn't know anything about, and one was little and one was big, I'd pick the little one, just because of that.
That's it's kind of like a recon man from CCC that we know that told a story about his first 1-0 was a former semi-pro football player
Oh
named
dear.
Big Bob that was about 250, 260, and they made the joke after one of the Harrier missions that they finally said, "You're too big, you can't go out." He was like, "Yeah, if you would have gotten hit, not being mean, but I would have had to cut you into pieces and put you in different
Well,
backpacks to get you home."
this is a little morbid, sir, but I tease the younger soldiers. Now, you guys are lucky with DNA and everything. All you need is a Ziploc bag, plastic Ziploc bag with a name tag in it, and put some goo in there and put it in your pocket and bring it out, because it's very sensitive. Do we never leave a man behind? Yeah, well, maybe that's quite a conversation. In
Yeah,
my mind, my loyalty, what I can live the longest with myself, John Bartlett, is my duties to the living.
hmm
And
hmm
I would like to
and
say, I served with Rose later on in Panama and stuff, and maybe we could talk it out, but and relieve him of that grief and sorrow, or at least make it more manageable. It's to the living, and we
guys have
do.
had that conversation. Don't if
I'll
don't
bet you
come
did. Yeah.
don't put your life on the line. If I'm dead and you can't get to me, don't
Mhm.
get the
But
rest of the team killed.
there was talk, and I heard some of this talk firsthand, was if I go down, mark me missing, not dead, because somehow it had a better effect on VA benefits and stuff, type of deal. I fully intended to honor that. It didn't happen, but what else can I do for my soldier? Is honor that promise. And so that's what I wanted to do in my 19, 20-year-old mind. And I think I would still do it that way. Um, the and I know I got invited once, just off the cuff, to talk to young soldiers at 10th Special Forces Group and assure them that we never leave a man behind. And I had to tell the colonel, I can't do that, sir. First off, we did. Bottom line, we did. And the same thing, the duty is to the living. I said, I have to tell them the brutal truth and help them prepare to live with it and do it. And I even had to add, if that's going to scare them off, you don't want them anyway. Um, and that's another brutal truth. We need the guy that can deal with the extreme. Um, I guess that's about it. I had one other thing, but it flew out of my mind. Maybe it'll come back on that subject.
Yes, sir.
You do need to plan for it, and I know they have more assets now and more technology. We all carried a blood bag too, because our medic was starting. I was in a soft plastic bag. I don't know exactly what was in it. Our medics could start an IV laying down beside the wounded under fire. They could start an IV under a poncho with a flashlight in their teeth to help that wounded person. That's the kind of help and dedication we need. Not somebody that needs it squeaky clean or something. The best we could do for them was that. Sometimes we had to pack a wound with whatever foliage was
So,
around, because there was no bandages left. They would give us one typical, what was it, 3x5 individual combat dressing. Well, every weapon the communists had shoot clear through you, and the hole on the other side was bigger than the entry hole. So don't you think we ought to have two, or one the right size? I don't know. I guess I'm ranting now, but yeah. Did I handle a question? Did I?
yes, sir. Yes, sir. Let me see. I'm sure this is going to be a yes, but infantry wants to know: was there ever a moment on an operation you thought you weren't coming back?
Oh yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's exactly right. I many, several, all of the above. Um, for some reason, that didn't preoccupy me though. What preoccupied me was doing the best job I could for my platoon. Their lives became so precious. Sometimes I compare it to, you're under a lot of stress in the Colorado Rockies. in the wintertime you're trying to start a survival fire. Is that little flame precious to you? Dang right it is, type of deal, because you're going to live or die by that. And yeah, there were definitely some times. There was the worst time was when we were going out under hot extraction with wounded, and the weather was closing in on us, and it actually entered my mind, we may not make it this time. What am I going to do about the wounded? What are we going to do? You want to leave them and let them be captured and tortured? It's awful. And I will confess at this time, I had made up my mind that I'd put the wounded and myself in front of a claymore and set the claymore off rather than face being captured. Now, whether I actually would follow that through, I'll never know, but that's what I had decided to do to avoid being a communist prisoner. I knew I couldn't deal with the torture. I just didn't want to do it, and it's a terrible thing to make that decision for those other men. Did I ask them about it? No, I didn't. I don't know. I don't know what else to tell you.
Yeah, I mean, considering, I hate, also being morbid and agreeing with you, but, that probably would have been the best choice of action, considering what y'all SOG would have faced had you been captured.
Well,
it
I
is
remember now
gross,
on nearly that same subject, the brotherhood in Recon was so strong that usually if one American got seriously wounded, the other one wouldn't leave him. I mean, they just drew the line in the sand right there. And it was like, nope, I ain't leaving Ernie or Joe or whoever it was, type of a deal. And we actually had one in the Delta projects that I was told by one of my NCOs that 3 Americans and 2 of them were discussing what to do because the third one was hit hard. And they heard a shot inside the perimeter, and the wounded Special Forces SOG men solved the problem for them. And that's part of that living in an extreme culture and environment where most people can't even, I'm sure they're shocked with me even saying things like that. But what am I supposed to do? Go back and face the compound and the guys and tell them I left my wounded? Johnny doing that, back then. I mean, it chokes me up after all these years type thing. Anyway,
there are just numerous sad stories
my
like that.
Labrador Retriever just came through the door.
I was about to say mine are beating at the door. We've got a few more, and we'll be done because we're almost at 2.5 hours now.
Wow.
Yes, sir. It flies. I told you it once we get in and going, it's going. A real quick one. MLT1, is that Quang Tree or Phu Bai, the launch site? Do you remember?
I got to think about that. I think it was Quan Tree, but I'll stand corrected on that.
I think you're right. I think MLT3 was NKP Nakhon Phanom. I think 2 may have been Phu Bai. I think 1's Quang Tree. I think you're right.
Yeah, when they pulled us out that time, the big Marine Jolly Greens, or I think it's what they call them, they took us to Nakhon Phanom, Thailand. And we did launch out of there. And I think Ubon, Thailand, and Udorn, Thailand, too. Recon teams, not us. They took us there because the assets that picked us up were from there.
Okay.
And I think there was fuel consumption issues, too. But I'm not real sure. And there's another bunch I didn't get to thank.
Yeah. I'll figure that out, but I'm almost positive it's Quang Tree or Phu Bai, but I'll find out for you. Where were we at here? I just jumped the gun on several things. That right here, Jason again. Sorry, Jason. Did anyone join your hatchet force that came from a different CNC during your time? And
did they? Sure did. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Any bad habits that they may have had that you needed to get them on touch with how y'all ran things?
Never thought of that. part of that, I think, is being the officer, and you I keep drumming on that, but you're not in the communication line. You're not one of the guys. You're not on the team. Period. You pass through. Let me share an old Special Forces leadership story. I don't know if you can see. Soldier NCO holds up both hands. Got 10 fingers, right? Says to the new soldier, which finger can you break? The young man's, well, I don't know. The old soldier says, you can break any of them or all of them. Do you know why? They're individuals. There's 12 guys supposed to be on a team. Subtract the officers, you got 10. And then he holds up his fist like this. He says, now, which finger can you break? None of them. Because we fight side by side and back to back, and we're tight together. Does that make sense to you?
Wow, absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
That's how Recon was. I stand in their shadow in some ways, but I don't take any crap off of them either, because it was a different game. Lynn and Pat made the comment that they would go out with us, and because the talk was maybe we could they could be like an extra squad and drop off of us and make a POW snatch, and that was something that didn't happen. But it was a different game. A platoon, was different than the squad, the recon team, different than the company. 50 to 100 guys or something. And it's just a different game with a different purpose, not taking away from either one of them. And I understand, our team's better than yours. That's just men, that kind of thing.
Oh yeah, always gonna have, excuse my language, a pissing contest amongst men.
Yeah, let them fight. I know they have a new definition of blood stripes now, but Tony Coelho and some of the old guys, that's in the airborne units. They used to have a bear pit like 10 feet deep, 10 foot square, and if you wanted to get be a squad leader, you had to fist fight with your squad leader. And I never witnessed that or anything like that. But that's what we were told.
Old
you need to
days.
train them to fight. Think about it. Even like when you were a little boy going to school, did you get in trouble if you punched somebody out? Yep. You even yelled at him or something. What if he was at Sunday school and you punched somebody? You got in trouble, right? Well, then all of a sudden, 18 years old, different color uniform and a haircut, we start training, doing things differently. Did I answer that man's question?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I had a question because we're getting towards the end here now. Did you actually? I'm going to bring up some photos while I'm asking the question. Were you around when Dewey Canyon happened? Because I know CCN was. I thought I remember the hatchet forces being involved in a Dewey Canyon up north.
I'm not remembering that, sir.
Okay,
Is that like a type of operation or
Operation Dewey Canyon? I believe Jerry Shriver, Dick Meadows, and one of the companies at CCN, I thought, captured a whole bunch of arms and stuff on the side of a hill.
I think that was CCS. Shriver was. I don't know that Shriver was ever at CCN.
He made a trip up. Dick Meadows supposedly, if I've got my information right from Jason Hardy's books, he was some of the boys and Jerry were asked to come up and help out. So I was just curious.
I wouldn't doubt it. I just not familiar.
It may have been 68.
If you were going to get some guys to help you out, that had been the two guys to get. Yeah, that would be just perfect as far as I'm concerned. I'm still convinced that Jerry Shriver, Mad Dog Shriver, never met the man. He had already been killed or captured or both or something down in the Hook at CCS. I still think he was part of the character for that movie Apocalypse Now, where they got that part. He was a pretty wild guy from what I was told, but I temper that with, the sergeants really like to tell the second lieutenant stories. So
I can attribute. I've spoken to Dave Maurer. I'm sure remember Dave from CCN. And weirdly enough, Jerry was one of Dave was one of the few people Jerry would actually actively look for. He would look for other people. I know he had more friends, but I've learned that there is a lot of myths out there that created
Yeah,
either by Jerry or by other people, and he quickly let Dave in on, some of some of them are fake, but I let them go just so people leave me be and
yeah,
are
yeah,
scared of me.
yeah. Tell stories, the fishing and hunting
Um,
stories, same way,
yeah,
they
absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely. I this was the photo you sent me because I didn't have the full photo. It just had you being decorated, but since we had a famous individual in the
Yep.
background with you, I
Yeah,
thought
Lynn
I'd.
Black. There he is. Great guy.
And do you
Right.
remember what was this for your Purple Heart or your Bronze Star? What ceremony
That
was
was a
this?
bronze star in that case. There, yeah.
Wow,
Yeah. Type
amazing.
type thing.
Oh,
And he was uh there were maybe three or four more guys standing in the same rank that he was, and the recipient would step forward and get the decoration and the handshake, and then step back, and the next man would come up. That's what I remember.
Colonel, I believe it's Colonel Shungle that's with y'all, and I've got the next photo, or I don't have it personally, but I've got in the books the next photo to where you've just stepped off, and Lynn's getting his
Oh,
medal.
okay. Yeah,
So
good. Yeah, Colonel Shungle. Yeah, Dan Shungle. Yeah, I served briefly with him in the 7th, and then he went to Chief SOG after that. And yeah, I'd forgotten that he had come there, but yeah, yeah.
Heard good things about Mr. Shungle. But a lot of the guys greatly respected him, and
You
especially
bet.
the men that served with him in the 7th. They really, really looked up to him. I had a few. I wanted to show that last one of y'all being extracted. Good Lord, what's going on here with the computer, y'all? Sorry about this. Oh, that's y'all being extracted after y'all's
Yeah,
training.
yeah.
And oh, that's Dick Meadows. I've got to go back to my photos here. Sorry, y'all bear with me, guys. Up. We'll hit one in just a minute, I know. Oh, were you at the, that's another thing. Were you at the presidential unit citation ceremony?
Yep, I'm on the right hand side there. Uh,
All right, or
yep. Yeah, you're close. Keep going. Yeah, right in there somewhere. Right in there. Uh, for the picture, if it was a little bigger, I could see better. That was an interesting. Oh, thank you. Let me find me. Well, yeah, because I remember him taking the picture. Where am I? Oh no, it may be the guy behind the man in the white shirt type
yep,
thing.
hidden, your face hidden right there, I believe.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right in there. That was an interesting day. We got the award. I was also in one of the ones during the presentation. In fact, I was the only enlisted man. I was a E5 in the Colorado 19th Special Forces, 5th Battalion, and got the word through them. And we received the award for all the presidential citation for all the MACVSOG soldiers. Uh, to me, it was kind of ironic that uh, it was kind of an eyesore for them in a way. Here I am, 50 years old and or older, out of shape, overweight National Guard soldiers standing up with field grade and general grade officers and senior warrant officers. And the irony part for me was, well, the NCOs actually did all the work.
Yeah, exactly.
How come
And
you
I was
don't have
about to say,
NCOs up here? Not to downplay the significance of the event. I don't
one
want
of
to
the
do that.
biggest ones, they had all, like you said, all the active duty guys, and for people to clarify, remember he was a captain, and the reduction in force, he was a sergeant. But
Yeah, that's
you've
right.
got Tangi there, and you've got Eldon Bargewell and Ken Bowray. But Eldon, Eldon was a Spec 4 and a sergeant doing all the highlights that he did. So I
Yeah,
mean, you're in good company there,
yeah,
being
you do it.
NCO.
Yeah, I met guys that I hadn't seen all those years. Some of them we threw on a chopper and they're wounded, and you'd say all kind of things. You try to stuff some money in their pocket if you have any, and we'll see in the States and all this stuff, and it just doesn't happen. And here they are, they're a dad and a granddad, and live and well, and it was pretty emotional. I was also there with 19th group guys that were starting selection process, starting their career, and I had asked. They were there to train. I was there for the event, and I asked them to attend the event to say, you need to meet these guys, and see what the long range of this is. And they did. They showed up, and they were very respectful, and the older men were very respectful of them. And of course, we all had something we wanted to tell them that we thought might help them stay alive, that kind of thing. But they did.
Getting to see that brotherhood like that, the potential ranks you're about to be joining had to be just absolutely mind blowing for those guys.
It was really great. They did cut me out of the printed pictures for whatever reason I never learned. That upset me a little bit. I think somebody in PR section maybe thought I was a poser or something. But we were all vested. We had to turn in our orders. My own battalion commander was at CCN when I was there, Colonel Wartime. And Major Moose searched every single one of us, and it was a major blessing. I'll tell you why. I was still trying to get approved with the VA and couldn't do it. My records were burned at St. Louis when the hippies burned down that building.
Oh,
and
yes.
I was having great difficulty because of the poser protection type stuff that was going on in the VA. And I was so blessed that Major Moose talked to me about it. And he said, well, John, your records are here at the Special Warfare Center, and they're also somewhere in South Dakota. I guess there's 5 places they archive veteran records. And I thought he was just totally unaware. And he says, this is Sunday. He says, you go to your local vet center on Wednesday and they'll have your records. And he did it. And I got approved within days. In fact, the supervisor took me around to every therapist and introduced me. And he said the words, John's the real deal. He's not a poser. And not that they'd singled me out. I don't think. It was just, that was that era of time when they had a huge number of posers. In fact, a couple of the SFA and a few of them, they had to cull the ranks and wash out a huge number of posers. In those days, we just took your word for it. You said you were in the SF, didn't know you. Well, okay, there was 8 groups or whatever it was. We don't know everybody.
That's been one thing that's surprising, and it's not as bad as it is, I can imagine, back then, but the guys are still doing it. The amount of men that claim to be SOG or even SF during Vietnam is ridiculous.
Yeah, there you go. Pabst Blue Ribbon was the only beer.
That was my beer of choice in college.
There you are. Yes, sir. Yeah, we have posers right here in our own community still today. I mean,
people are going to kill me with this picture right here if I do not ask, what kind of watch were you wearing?
That was a Rolex watch.
Oh.
I bought it. I was getting ready to go home when they took this picture, and I teased people. I had the choice of getting a tattoo or a Rolex, so I bought the Rolex. After a few years at home, I was discouraged because of my body chemistry. It would leave a mark around my wrist, and people would say, well, if you put clear fingernail polish on your watch, it won't turn your arm green. So I took it into a jeweler my dad had done business with, and he made me a stainless steel bracelet with gold overleaf clamps on the top, and we changed the bezel ring, and I just kind of forgot about it. And then 2 years ago, I got it out to pass to one of my sons, took it for a rehab, and the local jeweler called and told me to come back. He wanted to talk to me about it. There was no gold in the watch, and the guts of the watch had been taken out. And at that time, the gold was called the Oyster Date Perpetual Date Just Gentleman's Watch. I didn't want a Submariner. That was a $200,000 watch at the auction. And so we, just one of those things in life. people took advantage of us there, and we didn't even know it till years later. So
Oh
type of
man.
deal. A Rolex, the Star Sapphire ring, and a demo knife. That was the silly stuff that you were supposed to get to be a
SF man, you had to be.
yeah. Had to have those things. Oh, and a Randall knife if you had a Randall knife. I inherited one of those, but have since passed it along to a younger Special Forces man.
God, I can't imagine that. That's such a great thing to pass on, and that's my one of my favorite photos. That's a
Thank you.
wonderful photo of you.
Yeah, I was
I'm
young
I'm
and
I'm
handsome
a
and everything.
I'm yeah, you dang sure were. As you can tell, that's what got me into SOG is seeing y'all and all y'all's gear and all that. I'm a picture freak. So anytime I find some or some vets are willing to share
Well,
photos, I jump
it was
all over that.
surprising how many pictures are out there because they were always harping on us. No pictures, no pictures.
Thank God y'all didn't adhere to the rules too much, because boy, we are enjoying it
Uh,
55 years later a lot.
yeah. You're right. I yeah, we had cameras on patrol when we went out, Pentexes and I can't remember then one of the other Japanese 35 millimeter. But the problem was keeping them dry so that the film would be good, and they just didn't have the technology then. Now I guess they got the technology, which is good.
Man, I bet it's so strange, people, for you guys seeing us drool all over y'all's pictures and us, looking at y'all. Well, y'all are to me and to everybody else, real life superheroes. And I know that's got to
Thank
be
you.
weird for y'all, but
It
we respect the hell out of y'all and admire the hell out of y'all.
it humbles us, but thank you. I thank you for this. It's my attempt to come out of the jungle and
We appreciate you
yeah.
coming out publicly for the first time to speak about SOG and sharing it with us. I can't thank you enough for doing this. And we, like I said before we even started and talking privately, I would love to hook you up with some other SOG men for you to connect with offline. But I'd love to have you back on to
Sure. I'd like to do
mesh
that.
experiences.
I would like to do it because I can do this, or I can do small groups or one on one. The Agent Orange, uh, I have one of the presuppositions form of leukemia, clinical lymphatic leukemia, CLL. And I need to explain that quickly. That's not a death sentence. Like when you hear the word leukemia, you think cancer, death. It does affect me that my immune system has been compromised, and I need to be very careful in groups. That's why I don't go to the big conventions and things. And I kind of wish I did, but I got to measure the threat factor type of deal. I still like seeing the grandkids, that kind of thing. And there's still I want to go on with my Purple Heart program
Absolutely.
type of thing. And so this gives me connection to the whole world. Thank you.
I was about to say we're gonna share it, and Jason, who has been asking a lot of questions, he runs an exquisite Twitter page devoted solely to the Vietnam veterans, and here lately, more so SOG than anybody else, and we're going to be sharing this especially, and maybe we can line it up to where you can have you on to speak specifically about the Purple Heart Project and the Agent Orange, because
sure.
my father, I lost my father to pancreatic cancer from his time up in I Corps with Lima 35 in 68 and 69. He got Agent Orange, and he passed away from pancreatic cancer 5 years ago. So I anytime I can help out with other men, specifically Vietnam veterans, I do whatever I can. So you're always welcome here.
Yeah. I'm going to have to bail out on you, sir.
That's
the
fine.
Furnace man's coming, and it's cold in Colorado,
Absolutely.
We had our first snow a couple days ago. So.
Wow, it's better than here with that Alabama heat and humidity. Would you like to say anything else before we close out for the day?
Thank you personally, and thank you to all the veterans. Thank you to the families. They suffer too, type of deal. Let us be strong and go forward. Not be timid. There's a scripture in the Bible that tells us to stand up for our family and our country, and we need to do that. And we need to stand up and speak out when we hear people undermining that and trying to take our country away from us. We cannot be the silent majority anymore. That doesn't mean go out and shoot everybody in sight. It means do what's appropriate at the time and preserve. In my family, 11 of the ancestors served in the American Revolution with 3 generations. A couple of them were women that were involved. They provided logistical support and combat support as Continental soldiers and Minutemen. Has gone down through the centuries for us. And not that I'm bragging, I'm just telling you it can be done. We need to make our effort right now to fit what we want this country to be for our children and grandchildren. Amen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we've it's just rolling in thank yous and all of that, and wanting to have you back. So I will be in touch with you, and I thank you again for spending 3 hours with us today. And
I'm a motor mouth, yeah.
Oh no, absolutely. Don't think of it like that. We love it. This is what we're here for, is to listen to you. So thank you so much. And I'll be in touch with you here in the next few days.
Come see us in Colorado someday.
I would love to do that.
Thank you, sir.
You have a good day.
I will. Bye. You too. Bye.